Meeting of June 6, 2022 of the Westford Planning Board. We have all 5 members of the Planning Board with us. Bob is remote, so votes will be taken via roll call again. We have Jeff Morissette and Joe Gianowitz from town staff, and we have Paul Starrett, town engineer, with us this evening. Action-packed agenda, a little bit of everything, like all good things in life. We'll start, as always, with open forum. Does anybody on the board have any items for open forum?
Nope.
Nope.
No? Joe or Jeff, anything from Joe, anything for open forum?
Just a reminder to folks, town meeting is Saturday, weather pending. Check the town website in case there is a move to Sunday, the rain date. But it'll be this Saturday at 9 a.m. over at Westford Academy. So please attend if you're able.
Yes.
That's right, rain is in the forecast, isn't it?
50%. So 50
It's definitely out there. Yeah. Paul, anything from town engineering?
Just a public service. If you're out in the Griffin Road area tomorrow, there'll be some delays where they'll be paving Cloverleaf tomorrow, so that generally backs up trucks and traffic a little while if you're in that area. Be patient.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, great. With all of that, we'll go to...
Anything from the audience?
Oh, anything from the audience for open forum? Good call. All right, seeing none, we will go right to our public hearing items. The first topic before us this evening is PB 2201.
Want to announce that we're not skipping this?
Well, he mentioned it.
Oh, we didn't. I didn't know that we're skipping it.
No, he did not, actually. We will be, if anybody is here this evening for PB 2211, 504 Groton Road, the applicant has requested postponement without discussion to the July 18th meeting, just as a public
All
service.
votes roll call?
Yep, said that in the opening. Yep,
Okay.
all votes will be taken by roll call this evening with Bob being remote.
Yeah.
All right, so on to 5 Makepeace Road. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. My name is Paul Alf, and I represent the applicant. Allow me to introduce Jeff Brem. He's the project engineer from Meisner Brem Corporation. We have not been here since February because during the intervening period, we received a variety of comments from your staff and a long preliminary letter from the engineering department. And we spent our time doing our best to respond to the concerns of both your staff and the engineering department, and there have been changes made to the plan. Jeff Brem will go over the changes that were made to the plan in specifics, but one of the things I need to point out is that there's now a waiver request. We spent some time with intellectual dialogue with the building inspector regarding retaining walls, and he clarified that any retaining wall greater than 6 feet would have to meet these side yard or rear yard setback requirements. So we wanted to eliminate retaining walls which were greater than 6 feet. There's also a provision that's unique to the commercial highway district that requires that retaining walls that are greater than 4 feet be terraced. So we did our best, you will see, to eliminate the retaining walls. We could not reduce all the retaining walls to less than 4 feet. We'd have some retaining walls that are terraced at 5 feet along Route 3 because we're between a rock and a hard place, and that hard place is Route 3. Nothing we can do about that. So there is a new waiver request in the package as a consequence, but I think you'll find that it still fulfills the intent and purpose of the bylaw because that retaining wall is not going to be eyesore to anybody in the world. So, Jeff, if you want to go through the changes that were made so the board can understand where we are today.
Sure. Good evening, Jeffrey Brown with Meisner Brem Corporation, representing the applicant. There you go. That's the old plan to refresh your memory. And some of the key items that were brought up at the board were some of the parking at the beginning adjacent to the neighbor to the east. The retaining wall and some of the drainage relating to that same neighbors to the east and north. Engineering had they had a long letter that we've addressed, but I think their biggest concern, I don't want to speak for Paul, but I guess I will, is that the infiltration basin in the back towards the southeast portion of the site was close to the wall, and he was concerned that you never want to put water next to a wall, so he had a good point there. So these are some of the bigger issues, and then, of course, as Paul mentioned, the retaining walls, both on the northeast side and the southwest side of the site, didn't meet, as it turns out, the regulations, so we have to terrace them and be either at under 6 feet, or under 5 feet with a waiver, or ask for the waiver, and we are asking for the waiver on the southwest wall, that one there. So let's go, Joe, if you could, to the new plans. So this is the new set, first, second, third. Existing conditions plan, we also had a lot of changes to it. Let's go to that for a second, just so you know. The original survey was done by Jeff Hannaford's group, and they didn't have some of the information that was off-site because it was under snow when they did that work. So we found a couple of catch basins that showed up once the snow melted, and some other things that were requested by the engineering department that were put on the existing conditions plan. Okay, continue on. This is just the erosion and sediment control plan and demo plan, so we'll just skip that one. This is the layout, so let's look at this for a second. On this plan, you'll notice at the beginning of the site, toward the north, we added units 13 and 14. Those are 2 new units to the plan. That totals 3,608 square feet. So the new total building square footage is 25,865 square feet in 2 buildings. Also on this plan, you'll note that we moved the pavement to the northeast next to those 2 neighbors, away from the neighbors. What else shows up on this plan? And we've changed some of the parking areas, which I'll go through in a little bit. All right, let's jump to the grading plan. There we go. So this plan has all kinds of information on it, and you'll see that there is still a slope to the northeast, but that wall's been reduced from a long 170-foot wall to just a short, I think it's 50 or 60 feet long, but it's only 2 feet high.
Which
And
one?
move your arrow to the left a little bit higher.
It's not a wall now, it's grading.
It's just grading, and we're just 2 feet off, so we're just gonna use some boulders at the end for a very short section. So we basically eliminated that wall. On the other side, the north side, you'll see a series of dark dashed lines. Those are the the 3 terraced walls that we talked about. Those the bottom 2 are 5 feet tall, and the top one's 2 feet tall. It can be constructed entirely within the property boundaries without going onto Route 3. And if you recall, some of us on the site walk, we actually walked up to the top of that hill and looked at that, and that's really where it is, at the top of that hill, cutting into Route 3. That's the biggest thing. We did some utility work, again, at the review comments. We showed now a gas line that brings us gas to the buildings, underground electric. Fire department, right where your arrow is, fire department requested a hydrant be placed there. So there's the hydrant. That's on site next to the building. They also asked for a path of their largest vehicle turning path radius plan, which we've provided. I've heard through the grapevine that they may have a concern with that, and I've asked engineering to look at it a little bit more closely. I looked at it again, and I didn't see anything wrong with it, so I'm going to presume for the moment that it's fine until we get back. We eliminated most of the parking out front, or half the parking out front, partly, and added a building there. So the total parking required for the site under its use, as determined by Paul and the building inspector in previous correspondence, the requirement is 65 parking spaces. We are proposing 82 parking spaces. That includes 14 spaces inside the building. Each unit will have an interior space that they could use, and 68 outside. So you'll notice that even if nobody parked inside, we still have enough parking outside. The biggest change that engineering is going to see is the stormwater outlet, and moving that facility. So you can see we moved it far away from that wall to the northeast. It's now basically behind the entire rear of the building. We also changed the grade so that instead of using 330 XLs, which are 30-inch high, we're using 150 XLs, which are 18-inch high. So we've reduced the depth of those in order to maintain the groundwater separation. We've also accounted for groundwater mounding, and then that infiltration basin will discharge to a pipe network pick up the storm drainage, as you recall, that Route 3 is dumping onto the site. And that gets picked up in a closed system, and it goes to the north and discharges a little bit further to the bioretention facility we have in the front right. And then from there, it's treated again, and it's infiltrated, and then that will have an overflow, and Joe is doing a good job, the overflow pipe through the front of the site to the west. And then the intent is to tie into a catch basin that Mass DOT installed right next to their overpass conveniently. And that catch basin ties into a large 60-inch culvert that crosses Makepeace Road. We obviously will need to get permission to do that tie-in, and any approval would be conditional upon that condition from Mass DOT. I've already talked to two by email. I've emailed two different people at DEP, one in the Boston office, one in the regional office. And we're in different region. We're not in, you're in region 4?
With 3.
3, okay, I'm dealing with region 3, so.
Region 3 is Chris Chambers, and if you
No,
haven't talked
it's-
to him, you wanna talk to him soon.
Okay. And that discharges to a brook that's on the other side of Makepeace Road. Eventually, that brook drains into Deep Brook. And then we have, 100 comments from the engineering department, and we've outlined our review of each of those comments in a letter that we sent to the board on May 27th, and how we addressed each and every comment, including some changes to the HydroCAT and stormwater analysis. And that brings us to, those are the changes. I know that, or I suspect that engineering hasn't done their review yet, so we'll be waiting that. And then there are 2 waiver requests that Paul mentioned. One is that wall, that we are requesting waiver to go to 5 feet high for the terraced wall. And then the grading would like to go to 2-to-1 in other locations, where your requirement is 3-to-1 for commercial locations. But we have a couple of other grading areas that would like to go to 2-to-1, and we have an erosion control plan to deal with that. Everything drains away from Route 3, and now it drains away from the neighbors. So we think that waiver is in order as well, to minimize the work. So that's the changes, and you will have reports coming from your staff on these changes shortly, I hope.
Great, yes, in fact, Mr. Chair, we did receive the plans last week, and we'll get them in the order that they were received. We'll get you comments back.
Great, excellent. Joe or Jeff, anything from town staff?
Other than us at this time, no.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other comments from the applicant? Otherwise, we'll go to the board. Well, I'm
No,
good.
happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thanks. Darren, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I saw there was a lot of kind of dialogue between the applicant and staff and the neighbors on some of the questions as well, so thank you for that. Paul, I would just ask if you guys pay particular attention, I think, to the landscaping design along where the abutters are, the residential abutters. So I think we talked about, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I want to say that one of their concerns, obviously, is sort of privacy there, so.
sure. It's no secret that the engineering department knows very little about landscaping. It's sometimes green, but seriously, it may be something that the planner is more familiar with, or.
Yeah.
Great.
Do you know anything about landscaping?
He's a planner.
I will say that it was done by a professional landscaper, Jennifer Brook, out of Concord. She does a lot of work with us, and incredibly gifted. She did the Discovery Museum work, if you've ever been there, so I will say she's gifted, and she's worked a lot on this. And she also did the lighting plan, which I think has been reviewed and accepted by your police department.
I did see some comments in there.
Yep, I'm curious to see engineering's responses.
One quick question on the lighting topic. Did we see a lighting plan yet in the actual plan design yet?
Yes.
It is in there?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Darren?
Nope.
Is it in the one you submitted earlier?
I believe it's in the one we just, I can check.
I could be mistaken, but I think it's in the latest version,
Which we have or don't have?
which I believe you should have.
Yeah, there was another There were comments, I think, from the building inspector on that, too.
Oh, it's this?
Or is
Is it
it
that?
Yeah, I think that was my
Yeah.
Which one is
I think it's page 50 of the packet, if that
that?
helps.
Okay, so it's not in this one.
That's like
So it could be one of these.
a.
Got it, okay.
There you go.
Great.
Darren, if nothing else?
No, and the new building that is new to us, same use, same
Yes.
style as the other building, just smaller.
It's just an ancillary building, yeah, much smaller.
But same sort of, for a tenant, it's not like a maintenance facility or anything for the same.
No,
Yeah,
no, it's
exactly.
to lease out to to similar tenants and users.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Mike.
I don't have anything, we'll just wait for engineering.
Kate, my name's Kate. Oh, yeah, I'm a bit confused on the retaining walls. Is there one that's more than 6 feet?
Negative.
And then why do you need maybe the building,
N-
commissioner can explain why you need a waiver for the tiered ones, since our bylaws say what to do?
Yes, a particular requirement for a major commercial project states that if retaining walls are greater than 4 feet high, they must be tiered. And it also says the planning board can waive these requirements. So in this circumstance, because of the slope adjacent to Route 3, Jeff was able to design the retaining walls so none are greater than 5 feet, but 5 is greater than 4, so therefore we're requesting a waiver. Even though they are tiered, they would be greater than 4 feet.
So you want to have that just in case?
No, the way the design is, the way it's laid out, there are some retaining walls which are 5 feet high.
Each of the tiers are more than 4.
Maybe this'll help
Okay,
them.
I got it.
Can I approach?
Can I approach the bench?
My personal sketch on this, that may help, it's on the plans.
And to be clear, tiers are not required. You could build a wall 80 feet tall
Okay.
if it's designed by a structural engineer.
No, the zoning bylaw requires that a
Zoning.
commercial highway, for a planned commercial development, the retaining walls greater than 4 feet must be tiered. Doesn't say that anywhere else in the bylaw,
Right,
but it's in there, and that's what we're doing, so we had to address it.
Or
Okay,
building
just
code.
because my interpretation didn't say that all the tiers had to be 4 feet or less, but building commissioner, if that's what he says, then I'm okay. I got it now.
Okay.
In the fire apparatus plan, you said you're going back and forth with the fire department. I was okay with your proposed condition regarding noise. I thought that made sense. So I was okay with that. So there's no parking in reserve now because you added the buildings.
There are parking in reserve. What's required is 65 spaces, and we have 82.
But you said 14 of them are in the buildings.
14 are inside and 68 are outside.
So are you gonna,
It still leaves 3.
so are 3 of them you're not gonna build? I mean,
No, we're building all,
Yeah.
we're building all spaces.
Yeah,
Oh, I see what
You're
you're
not-
saying.
but
I see what
originally
I
we
see what you're
talked
saying.
about-
Originally, he said there were 65 spaces.
yeah, and you
No.
didn't have those buildings, so you were gonna bank the ones that were down towards the entrance.
We were gonna have some reserve spaces, right? We got rid of those, yes.
Okay,
The 2 definitions of reserve. You mean, I get it now.
I got it, yeah.
Land banked.
I know for the neighbors, this 100-foot setback, I agree, because any special permits and waivers and variances for the other lots don't apply to this lot, so I can kind of agree with you that there's no 100-foot setback required. And you had a question, are there gonna be any waivers to major commercial projects? You had requested that, so,
And there are 2. One is the 4-foot high retaining wall requirement, And the other is a slope requirement in the major commercial project
3
standards?
to 1 is required, so
Yes.
we'd like to go to 2 to 1, which is typical.
Okay.
That's it.
And there was also the question whether or not you would have to go to the Conservation Commission.
We do have to go to the Conservation Commission, and we will be.
So could that affect our decision?
It's just for the outlet, so it's all, no work is being done to the actual buffer, but the pipe itself and the road itself is within 100 feet of the wetland. So we have to dig up the road and put the pipe in.
Okay. I'm just thinking if they give their decision after we give ours, and
I'm sorry, let me get that, we're not digging up the road. We have to work within 100 feet of the buffer to put the pipe in.
I was gonna say.
I saw you move.
Yeah.
We're digging up the road.
No digging up the road, no digging up the
No,
road.
you don't wanna do that.
and in your traffic review, it is a 10% increase in traffic, which to me is a fair amount. It's not like 1% or 0.5%, so I would want to make sure about site distances and all of that. And I can't think of any other mitigation that might need to occur.
That was in your submitted materials, Jeff?
It was.
And
Before we get off that topic,
Yep.
There are 2 trees, yeah, good, you're right there. 2 shade trees that will have to be removed and will require a shade tree hearing.
any
So
plans
thank you for
to
that.
replace them somewhere else where it won't affect site distance?
That's up to the tree warden.
Who's the tree warden?
The Director of Public Works, Mr. Steve Cronin,
Excellent.
duly authorized.
And that's all I had, and I appreciate that you're working with the neighbors and engineering to figure out as much as practicable and within the bylaws to help us with this. So you have the same number of units on the top. You're adding,
Correct.
you're adding that to.
Same building.
Yep, alrighty. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Kate. Bob?
The only question I had was because it's unfortunate I can't read the print that was in the packet, or the resolution's too low. It does look like there are some proposed walls alongside the butters properties. Could I get a clarification on the height of those walls? those
Yes, sir.
retaining walls?
2 feet high, Bob.
Okay,
Just
that's the only
missed.
question I have.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had in addition to what Kate discussed.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
And, yeah, my primary questions were around landscaping to the abutters and the point that Kate asked about the retaining wall, which this was actually very helpful in answering, so I get it now. Okay. Any other comments from engineering, given that?
We'll
No?
get on this as quick as we can.
Great. Anybody from the audience here to discuss PB 2201 5 Makepeace Road? Please, to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please.
Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. I have 3 questions. The first one is trees, and I'm just wondering if you are going to be planting trees on the lot, and if they would be of, certain good nature trees to plant, native trees, and also as big a caliper as you can, and guarantee their life for 2 years. And as far as the shade trees, that's a concern too, because I'm pretty sure that the diameter of the shade trees is significant in that road. And so I would ask that you plant more, plant bigger. I don't know what to do, but losing trees in Westford is a pretty big concern of many people in this town. The second question is about parking, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to read this, and I don't know what parking in the building means, but does that mean you're adding 30% more than the required, and are they going to be under the building, or how is the parking?
You can see them, I think, along the perimeter of the back of the building there,
Yeah.
where Joe's kind of highlighting, and then there are some out in the front near the second building. There's some there as well.
And so does that total 85?
There's also the parking, there's one or
No,
two
one spot.
spaces. There's one spot in each of the shops, and then there's parking outside of those shops, which you see those sort of dashed rectangles.
at grade, not under the building. There's big garage doors and they drive in.
Yeah, they can just
Oh,
park
okay.
behind the garage door.
Oh,
or
so they
whatever.
literally are in the
Think,
buildings?
think fire station.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. And I guess my question about lighting would be, I would hope, I did see the lighting fixture that Joe showed as part of that. And it doesn't, I'm hoping it's full shielded cutoff, mostly for the neighbor's sake, that it comes down and they can't see the fixture. But if there are any on-building lights, I would also hope that they would be shielded so that nobody can see any fixtures.
There is lighting on the building. I saw one wall mounted on the lighting plan. Does the applicant care to speak to the lighting that will be attached to the building?
I believe it's full shade, full cutoff as well.
So you can't see the fixture inside. It'll be shaded.
Say that again? I'm sorry.
Like, you won't be able to see the bulb looking at the building. It'll be shielded so that the light is
Oh, I don't
going
know about
down to
that.
the building.
I don't know about that.
Well, that's what I'm saying about a shielded light would be good, especially if there are neighbors in the area, and landscaping won't, you know,
I
provide
know we
any
have
buffer.
requirements for shielding on the lights.
You have foot
can't go up.
candles escaping the property, that's your,
We also know that they can't go up.
Well, there is the foot candle plan right there, so you can see this
Oh,
thing on the
Is
property.
that the type of light up in the upper?
That's for the street lights, yes.
Not the buildings mounted lights.
But there, it'd be a similar light, and you can see the pattern of where it lights it up.
So from what we can see on the plan, it does not look like light would be escaping the site, from what we can see.
Definitely, but looking at a bulb is a little problematic,
Understood.
so we'll just put it in there for discussion. Thank you very much.
Yep. Joe, it might be helpful, could you pull up page 57? I think that's the preliminary landscaping plan, which does show some of the representation of the plantings that we make.
There you
There it
go.
is. So this is what they've proposed for tree planting, at least initially.
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening. Nilesh and Purvi, my wife, 7 Makepeace Road. We had a couple of discussion with Ed, and he did mention that he will look into the possibility of building the wall where, during the entrance. So that I just wanted to see if that's been considered. That's first.
Yeah, I didn't understand, because now it's 2 feet retaining wall, so is the 2 feet one, that's in out, the backyard one, or because the main issue was to shield and not have direct access, because the 2 feet, anyone can climb it. And, again, what she said, the lighting, because our kids,
Yep.
the bedrooms are there, so it's
So you're asking about the retaining wall that is, Joe, is it right there? Is it the one that runs along that part of the property there?
yes.
Right,
So
the retaining wall is really on the, adjacent to number 9,
Okay.
so it's not adjacent to number 7.
So how tall is the one that's adjacent to number 7 on this side as well as that side?
There is no retaining wall against number 7, and most of the trees on the property would be saved. Joe, if you could, right where your arrow just was, right there, and then follow the edge of the grading line to the left, sorry. All those trees right there would be retained. So there are some trees being retained adjacent to your property.
And there's absolutely no wall on either of the side that, so it would be completely open now that there are units on this side as well. So our property is completely accessible without any wall.
There'll be a slope, 2, 4, 6, 8, an 8-foot slope.
Well, and from what I see, they are planting, again, on slide 57 or page 57,
And you'll
it
see
does
a lot
appear
of
like they're
plants.
putting in 10 trees of some type there.
When
So
you
they are putting in a line of trees there, is what is
But
on the plan right
that's
now.
just takes care of the visibility, right? But
Yep.
if somebody wants to just pass through the trees, they
Yep.
can anyways come down to our property.
Right, so
at any
that
point
was
of
our
time.
main concern with safety and privacy and
Yeah.
everything. Again,
So you're saying you're more interested in there being some sort of a fence line there?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely, because this is a commercial property. I agree that tenants are going to come in. And, but it also says tenants and invitees. So potentially, you don't know who
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
you cannot really
yeah.
monitor
Yep.
who's coming. And if there is no fence
Yep.
on any side of my property, that makes it susceptible to.
Yeah. Understood. Is there any appetite for putting in some sort of a privacy
We'll
fence?
check with the owner to see if that's something that he would like to add.
Okay.
One more thing we talked, sorry, go ahead. Finish that off and then we'll talk about them.
Do you have a comment?
Might be able to get a very, very local source for quality fencing.
Directly across the street.
The shipping would be low.
Okay, so understood, and we can take that under advisement that you'd like to have some
Thank
sort
you.
of privacy fence there.
And so, again, with the noise, I saw the reply to that since this is commercial and there was special variance made for building the houses there, so when that permit was given, I kind of want to understand, like, now that we are building a commercial properties, does that variance not come into play of having neighbors and not being disturbed? Because even though the decibel noise level is conforming with the commercial part, because it falls in that territory, but when the special assessment was made to build the houses, doesn't that special variance protect the neighbors from not having to have those extra noise levels that comes with the commercial property?
That isn't how I would interpret this, a special
Maybe I'm
permit,
not putting it
because-
correctly,
Yeah,
but-
so, the way that when I read Attorney Alfred's letter and sort of did a little bit of research this weekend on this myself, I think your use for having a house there is actually the non-conforming use based upon the zoning, right? And this is actually a conforming use based upon the zoning. Am I getting that right?
You are correct.
So you getting a special permit or a variance to be able to build your home there doesn't necessarily grant you the protections that you would if you were in a residential zoning district, is how I interpret it.
Yes.
Although that's probably subject to interpretation.
Unless, I'm assuming there wasn't anything in the
In the decision?
ZBA decisions stating that they should be granted the right to-
Takes away from
Yeah.
commercial districts.
So-
yeah.
He's correct. If they got relief for their property, they can't put binding conditions on another property that's not the
I
subject
agree with
properties.
that, but
Right.
I just didn't know if, for future stuff, if they would need to be treated as commercial or residential properties.
I don't see anything in this section, and Attorney Elfin or our building commissioner could point something out otherwise, but I don't see anything that brings up that set
Well,
of
I didn't,
circumstances.
I was just wondering in the decisions if anything was stated in the.
I read the decisions and I didn't see any condition imposed upon this property as regard to noise.
I mean, the treatment of their property, if the decisions for their properties. I agree.
No.
Your property is separate from.
Correct.
From their property.
Correct. No, I don't know of any conditions of approval that affect our property as a consequence of the variances and special permits obtained by the abutters.
So
I
that
can
probably, that's not,
understand
yeah,
that, yeah.
that's, so, I think that the unfortunate answer to your question is you don't get protection around noise from this property. This property has to adhere to the noise standards that would govern any commercial, property in this. This is industrially zoned,
Is it
actually. So
industrially zoned,
it's
correct.
technically in an industrially zoned parcel. They can produce the amount of sound that is permittable by the zoning bylaw, regardless of the fact that you have an abutting property. In this case, because you're also in the industrial zoning district, and you got a variance to build a home there.
So there's nothing we can do about the noise and.
That's unfortunately, yes.
I can't say anything.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back and see if there was any mentioned when we bought the house, right? Back
Right,
then,
right.
then we have-
Did you build it or you bought it?
No,
No,
we
you
bought
bought
it.
it after the fact, yeah.
Right, so was there any,
Did they disclose to you that you were
that's
buying
what I
it
was
in
asking,
industrially
was
zoned?
it
Right,
necessary to disclose that, or was it like just like they can go, you know,
Right.
without disclosing that? That's something that I would be interested in, right?
Right.
Because we should have known that
yeah,
at that point of time,
right, right,
right?
yeah, for sure,
So,
yeah. Okay,
And I will say, the applicant did propose some language, so if it's excessively loud, we could condition that.
yeah, we
That
could,
would
yes.
make sense.
Because it is a major
Commercial project, which
commercial
does,
project,
which
yeah.
does give us some, that actually did, put something in my head, and Joe, we should have on our list of things to look at for future bylaw improvements, a general noise ordinance in general, if it's not already on the list. Beyond just major commercial projects. It's only come up 4 or 5 times. I'm a slow study, but I catch up eventually, Paul. Yeah, but Darren, good point, I think we could put a condition in there. And I think Attorney Alfred did sort of offer some general language, so we can do some things to maybe mitigate the noise to a certain level. Are there hours of operation
Yeah.
for the facility?
Yeah, you submitted those, right? I think in the original application there were hours.
Recall what they are.
No, no.
Like
That was,
working on
that was in
Sundays.
December.
The kids would say it's been a minute.
Let me see.
I mean, something like that, we would maybe make it part of the conditions,
Yeah.
the decision.
Well, that's what I'm,
Can think about that if it wasn't provided, or maybe if they have a different answer now, that they're two separate things, maybe they can just provide some, desired hours of operation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what's gonna be difficult about that is I can envision a tradesperson being out somewhere in a job and then
Yep.
coming back late at night and merely parking his or her vehicle.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, and leaving again, so hours of operation could be tough.
I was thinking the same thing, and I don't think you could preclude somebody from like dropping off a vehicle or picking up a tool or something like that, but maybe there's some language, Paul, that could be worked in around, you know, any sort of manufacturing could be limited to, you know, a certain window of time, right?
There's,
Could be a company that fixes alarms, and they had an alarm go off, and they need some parts, and they stop by the store
Sure,
to get
yeah,
the,
again,
the
picking,
shop to get the parts.
picking up parts and things like that, absolutely, but I think if there's any manufacturing, even light manufacturing that's gonna be going on the site, maybe that could be, you know, limited to daytime, daylight hours.
So noted. We'll find out.
All right, great.
So there won't be hours of operation, so anyone.
I
can
think when
come
we
in-
talked to Ed, you
yeah.
guys know Ed, right? He did
Ed.
mention couple of hours of operations. Oh, I know you, Jeff. So, yeah, he did mention couple of hours of
Anyone can come in
operation.
3 a.m. in the night when the kids are sleeping, and there's all kinds of noise going on. So that's a health issue, really speaking, for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they said that we'll put
Yeah,
manufacturing
we
hours.
just gave them in direction that we'd like there to be something around the hours of operation that would limit noise generating activities after hours. We've definitely heard you.
Yeah, so just reiterating some points that we talked with Ed, right?
Yep.
Offline, not in the meeting, is
It
we
is
talked
in
about.
the email.
Yeah, it's in the email,
Yep.
and he did talk about putting a gated entrance where, you can,
Limited
they have to
access
limited
to-
access, only authorized people can go in
Yep.
at some specific hours, not beyond the hours, so
Yep.
that was more comforting for us when we talked to him.
Yep.
I didn't see that in the response as in one of the emails, so
Yep.
I would like to see that in the email just so to be, more comfortable.
Yep.
That way, we will be more comfortable in terms of knowing that not anybody's entering the property, not any time of the day, right? It has to be restricted by some hours, right? And, he did talk about putting another wall, on that side, but I think you can thinking about it, not necessarily. He said that he will he'll talk to the engineer and try to figure it out, but if that's the case, I would like to see that somewhere in the written, right, just so that
Yep.
I know.
Any of those conversations playing out between, Ed is the
Ed O'Neill,
owner?
he's a principal with the developer, but I think that there were conflicting issues regarding the retaining wall. One, we're having the engineering department discourage retaining walls, And the impression we got from your original communication is that you weren't fond of the retaining wall, but now I hear you saying you'd like to have a fence or something so that the people that are on this site can't easily wander into your property. Is that right?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
A barrier of some kind. And in terms of there being a gate, I'll talk to Ed O'Neill and Mr. Gaudet about that. I don't think they're going to propose that there be limited hours of operation just for the reasons that I stated, is that when I'm coming back from a job in Maine, I'd like to be able to put the vehicle there.
Yep.
But I will talk to him about what he had in mind as regard to a gate and limiting hours.
Yeah, because, I mean, we don't see that on the plan, and I don't think we're considering that as a condition of approval or anything like that. So what, obviously, my concern is that there's a dialogue going on between the principal owner of the property and an abutter that isn't really reflected here. This board is considering what we can do to provide some accommodation for the abutters, but if things are being discussed like a gate and those aren't on the plan, I'm not sure how we're,
All right.
how we're going to provide them any,
Assurances,
support,
yeah.
assurances through the actual decision.
All right, we'll find out and get back to you.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else here for PB 2201 5 Makepeace Road? Okay. All right, so I guess we're at the point where we're going to continue this until engineering has a chance to review it. Do we think that that will be the July meeting?
We anticipate that that will be the case.
July what?
18th.
18th.
People keep scheduling things, trying to schedule things the first week of July, and I ask them what's wrong with them.
This is
All
the
right,
third
they
week
always
of
have
July.
this meeting on the week I take a vacation.
Yeah, I think that's my.
July 18th works for you, gentlemen?
It does, I'll be in town that day, yes.
Outstanding.
I have a question. Do you think everything would be resolved by then and we should ask staff to start a draft decision?
We can certainly do that.
Yes.
Why not, depending on how comments go with engineering department applicant, why not at least give us that option?
Sure,
And that way,
Yeah.
if it makes sense,
So we-
we'll certainly try to do that.
sure.
If you don't see it in the packet, then obviously there was some issues.
That you think that we need to dig into a little
Yeah.
further.
Or they
Great.
weren't resolved quite in time to write a draft.
Sure.
Could be that.
Should be that. It is the summer. Okay, great.
Wonderful, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
So given that, is there a motion to continue PB 2201 to the July 18th Planning Board meeting at 7 PM here in Meeting Room 201 Town Hall?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Thank you.
Enjoy the start of summer.
Well, it's nice having you back.
Especially the first week in July.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
don't mess with the first week of July.
Thank you.
By the way, I will be out on vacation that week too.
That's handcrafted.
Yeah,
You can't leave
thank
that.
I'm on vacation that week too.
You are. Perfect.
Yeah, that is checked.
We could always do a
We'll
special.
give you a satellite phone.
We could always do a special one.
We could do a special.
Yeah, we could do something special.
They just sacked Cassidy. The internet is abuzz.
Okay, the next item on our public hearing topic list, or item list, is PB 2211 for 504 Groton Road. The applicant has requested to continue without discussion to the July 18th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to do so?
Second?
Motion and a second to continue PB 2211 to the July 18th meeting, 7 PM, Meeting Room 201, Town Hall. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. The next public hearing item is PB 2213, which is a scenic road permit for 59 Hildreth Street, and PB 2216, stormwater management for 59 and 63 Hildreth Street. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant. Russ Trawick is here to my left.
Yes.
We were here a few weeks ago regarding the two permits, the scenic road permit and the stormwater permit. And
Yes.
the board wanted to see a draft decision, which was, in hindsight, a pretty good idea, since I have some comments on the decision.
All right.
So I did get a chance to take a look at it, and I have no comments on the conditions of approval for the scenic road.
Okay.
But I do have a couple comments on the stormwater permit.
Okay.
And just to step back a little bit, this is basically, it's a two-lot A&R subdivision, and work on the first lot is well underway. The house is already constructed, the septic system's in place, and the second lot is what triggers the need for the permit. So with that being said, it seems like a pre-construction meeting with anybody other than maybe Paul or town staff would be a bit of an overkill, since there's no connection to the water system, because there's no water on the road. So we've got a well, we've got septic systems, there's overhead utilities, we're just gonna connect right to the house. So again, it's just one single-family lot that we're adding to the plan, so
Yep.
it seems like a pre-construction meeting might be a bit of an overkill. So I'd like to request that any condition for a pre-construction meeting be deleted.
So that would be item 6 then, under conditions of approval?
Yes. And then number 7 would have to be reworded, within so many days of the issuance of the permit, rather than tied to the construction.
Engineering?
On this particular project site with two houses being built, we don't anticipate any need for the traditional big pre-construction meeting.
So how would you modify number 7? Which will now become number 6?
I don't know, within 14 days of the issuance of the permit?
I see what you're saying. So instead of saying prior to, say within 14 days of the issuance of the permit?
Yeah, because typically we need to provide the engineering department 2
Yeah.
weeks' notice for the pre-construction meeting.
So you want for issuance of the building permit within 14 days of?
No, within 14 days.
There's no issue with the building permit issuance, but at number 7, it says prior to the pre-construction meeting.
You're right.
I
Yeah.
need to follow there's 4 items that need to be submitted.
Yep.
So within
If I do that,
14 days of what?
issuance of the permit,
Of this stormwater management permit.
of the stormwater management permit.
In other words, we can approve this evening, and within 2 weeks,
They have to
he'll
get
have to
that
have a
information.
meeting and get this information to, it sounds like town engineer.
Yeah, you're still gonna give us the CADs and everything else.
But do you want to have the meeting before they actually do the work, or he's saying to
Right.
provide it after the work?
Provide,
I think he's saying the
I
work
was
is kind of
saying
already
we
in
don't even need
progress.
a meeting. Don't have a pre-construction meeting, and if there's no pre-construction meeting, number 7 can be changed to 14 days after the issuance of the stormwater permit, as opposed to prior to the pre-construction meeting.
So you're suggesting strike 6 and reword 7 to be within 14 days of the issuance of the permit?
Yes.
we're gonna have a pre-construction meeting though, so but it's just gonna be, did you say me and Joe, and maybe Matt, cause I think there's a conscom. Yeah, cause, I mean, we still need to make sure you and your contractor know what it is that you're going to be allowed to do, which I think you're gonna talk about next. And construction entrances, all the things that at least I have a concern. I thought you were asking to waive the pre-construction meeting because you don't need the Board of Health and the fire department and the police department and the
Right.
many, the building department that faithfully show up to the pre-construction meeting. So if it were just to be Joe and I and probably Matt, we'll still have one.
Okay.
I mean, so what is the complication with that, or?
It just seemed like, Matt can come out on his schedule. In fact, he might have already been out, I'm not sure, because the hay bales and silt fence, or straw wattles and silt fence, have been up for quite a while now.
Okay.
So do you want it prior to commencement of construction, or prior to construction of
Well, it sounds like
number
Paul
whatever?
still wants to have a pre-construction
Yeah,
meeting.
but I'm just, it's 59, and what's the other number?
63.
So prior to commencement of construction of 63 Hildreth, the applicant shall have a meeting with with engineering, conservation, and planning to review stormwater? Do you want to
Yeah,
make
it's
it that
actually
way?
59, 63 is already under construction.
63 is built.
Okay, so number 59, you want to do something like that? And that prior to this meeting, the following shall be submitted?
Yeah, we could do that. I have one other request, and that is, tree clearers are extremely busy, and we've already rescheduled a tree clearer 3 times. He's on schedule for, tomorrow morning. So we were wondering if we could at least get in and clear the trees, but not do any grubbing. So just cut the trees, leave everything, and then go on, because we have the potential of losing a tree clearer for a month or so. And we don't wanna have any, there's not a lot to be cleared.
So, you know, thinking back even to Colonel Rawls, we need to have some kind of a construction entrance on Hildreth.
There's one now.
It's already there. So
Okay.
it's in
I
place.
built it for 63.
Yeah, we just can't be tracking out onto that particular, that road in particular, all roads, but that road in particular.
Yeah, we built
Yeah,
that
that's
before
in
we
place
started
because of
63.
house number 63 that's being built.
Right.
So would that, so would,
Already in place.
would this affect, which of the conditions would this affect?
I think it would be anything that references prior to construction activity. If the board can just make a determination that tree clearing shall not be considered part of the tree construction activity, then
But you said erosion controls are already on the site, you said,
Yes,
right?
they are.
yes.
So that handles 12, because you've already done it.
So,
I don't know, we can say it's not part of construction, maybe we can we waive that or allow it to happen, Jeff, otherwise?
I mean, their ask right now is to simply cut trees, but kind of not really have any substantial land disturbance.
Yeah, they're not doing
Right, we're
earthwork.
not gonna pull the stumps. We're just
Right.
gonna cut the trees, get rid of the trees.
Yep.
And then,
thinking
have
of
the
our
we have
subdivision
the meeting,
rules
yeah.
and regs discussion that we had last year, fall, would tree clearing even fall under something that?
I don't want to complicate
Right.
this by talking about subdivision rules and regs, that doesn't apply here.
Well,
So-
no, but I mean, is tree clearing something that we need to have something specific here versus scrubbing?
It's when we established the stormwater management bylaw and targeted the acre of disturbance, we want to be accommodating to the people that are building a house. They're building 2 of them and they're big, and so you hit the trigger of 1 acre. And we will keep the project in line in accordance with our bylaw, but it was never really is to hinder the work or the progress or, you know, the development of the lands. It's just, so I thought we would get together, but if you're saying tomorrow morning, that's not gonna happen
Right.
before you do all those things. So we'll have
yeah. So we could basically leave the schedule, you know, have the pre-construction meeting. It'll be a limited pre-construction meeting, but that doesn't need to change. Nothing else needs to change. If we could just get permission to cut trees tomorrow and leave all the other conditions the same, that works too.
And if there is a construction entrance in place and your logger is been vocally instructed about tracking
We actually blocked
material.
off the other,
I mean, they can be the worst offenders, to say bluntly, but I wanna make sure that, you know, we're not gonna get the phone calls, or I'm not gonna find something when I drive up there. Otherwise, we don't have a problem with someone, you know, nor, as we wouldn't with a private resident cutting down trees on their property.
Right.
Maybe we ask Jeff how we can write it.
Well, I was gonna say.
You could just say
does anybody-
accepting the cutting of trees, which specifically does not include grubbing, you know, we can throw some
Do
language
we,
in there.
do we even need to memorialize this into the document? Was gonna be my question.
That's my question, yeah.
That's
Well, I would,
interesting.
to protect
Yeah.
everyone. I think we should have something, and we
Okay.
can.
Does anybody on the board take issue with the trees coming down prior to the pre-construction? Bob?
No.
No, okay, so I don't think the board has any objections
Okay.
to the activity. So however, we would like to memorialize that into the document.
We can take care of
I
it.
think acceptable to us. Great.
and then we'll meet prior to any stumping.
Yep.
Yeah, we need to meet before you.
Yeah, before you're doing earthwork, please,
And-
let's have the
You
meeting.
know, was there a reason you wanted to limit the people that Joe invites to the meeting, or?
I didn't really, I
can
didn't want
invite
to
'em.
limit them. I just said, I thought it might have been a bit of an overkill for the construction of one house.
Yeah,
But
don't wanna hurt any feelings,
If everybody
so.
wants to show up, they're more than happy to
Yeah,
show up,
yeah,
but
we'll do a normal pre-construction meeting, but, optional attendance.
sometimes when you get that many people together, it gets more and more difficult to schedule.
Yeah.
If he
This-
keeps it in, he has to provide the donuts.
Right, yeah, no, well, yeah. I'm sure there are laws, there must be laws about that.
We're really getting into how town government works now. All right, so, are there any other changes to the document or any other comments that you have to the stormwater management draft decision?
Condition number 24
Okay.
references condominium association documents. And
It does?
yes, the very
Not in
bottom
the
line.
stormwater.
Maybe not in the stormwater, hold on.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
stormwater.
talking in the scenic road one?
In the stormwater?
Stormwater permit, yeah.
Oh, more.
Referencing the final maintenance agreement being
No,
recorded.
24?
no,
I don't have that.
you're in a different one.
I have stormwater runoff shall not be
Those two
directed.
projects passed.
Yeah.
Are they referring to the rain garden?
No, I have,
I think you're in the first,
I don't think there are 24 in the first one. There's only
in the
5 conditions.
stormwater permit?
Is there a common driveway?
Yep,
No.
in the stormwater management permit, you're talking about conditions of approval, and you said number 24?
Yeah.
Yeah, not
Don't
on
have
ours.
that. Stormwater runoff shall not be directed to any of the permanent BMPs until the associated drainage areas are stabilized. That's what I have as 24.
That was what was emailed to me.
O&M plan,
Okay.
agreement.
What did I miss?
Uh-oh.
final O
We
and
have-
M
we have
plan.
Document mismatch, versioning issues?
Looks like maybe it was corrected after it was
Why don't you
emailed.
take a look at this one, this is the one that's in the packet, and see if you have the same concerns.
A late catch.
While Mark is searching for that, I can update you on a project, the developer with us tonight is doing the Colonel Rawls project as well. And despite a rocky start, or a rough start here, they've done a phenomenal job out there. He's kept a good tab on his contractor, and it's a wet and messy site, but even so, they've been doing a good job out there. They're working on the culvert now. They've got their retention system in. We hope to see the road paved soon. They are making good progress out there. And Russ is out there, so he's making sure that it's being done right.
He's camping out there, right? Because he's
I think
almost.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a much different version.
Oh, sorry about that.
The numbering is a little different, the order's a little different. Let me just see.
I was gonna say, do you mind if we go to the board while you look through that, and then we can circle back to you to find out if you have any additional comments before we take action on it?
Sure.
Great. Anybody on the board have any comments regarding the draft decision, either for the scenic roadway or the stormwater management permit?
Other than what we talked about tonight, no.
Right. Mike? No?
I just had a typo in the project summary for the scenic bylaw, the second paragraph. The applicant proposes to construct 2 new 20-foot wide driveway openings feet as part of the construction. I think feet shouldn't be there, and that was all I had.
Thanks, Kate. Bob, do you have any comments on either of the draft decisions for 59 and 63 Hildreth?
No, I'm good.
Great. I am similarly all set with them. Yep. Anybody here from the public tonight to comment on PB 2213 or 2216, 59 and 63 Hildreth? No. Mark, then it's just if you have any other items you'd like to discuss.
No, I think, no questions or comments on the rest of them. There's 11 more conditions than what I had, but,
More conditions?
yeah.
A lot
I
of
think
them
they're
are
just reworded
boilerplate.
differently and
Yeah.
renumbered and separated.
It's bonus.
Yeah, I think, so I'm getting my money's worth, I guess.
A lot of them, they're all standard. A lot of them are standard, so.
Okay, then. Is there a motion to close the public hearing for PB 2213?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing on PB 2213, 59 Hildreth Street, scenic, what is this? Scenic road permit. All those in,
And,
well, I'm only doing 2213. I was gonna do 2216.
Oh,
Want to close
sorry.
them both? We could close them both. Is there a motion to, okay, let's close 2213.
Sorry.
Motion to close PB 2213. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Is there a motion to close PB 2216, stormwater management permit for 59 and 63 Hildreth Street?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. Is there a motion to approve the decision on PB 2213 for 59 Hildreth Street?
So moved.
Second.
With,
As amended.
as amended this evening, which I don't believe it was.
This is for the scenic road
Oh,
permit?
no, it was amended. You made
Yeah,
that. Yes,
for the
as,
scenic
as
road
amended for grammatical correctness this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve, PB 2213. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. Is there a motion to approve PB 2216, the stormwater management permit for 59 and 63 Hildreth Street as amended through discussion this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Great, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks.
Yep,
Good luck.
Good luck.
Excuse my stupidity, but what's that thing there?
It's a air filter,
Oh, okay.
which there's one in just about every office space.
All right.
Are you playing Balderdash?
Yeah, no, that thing over there, R2D2?
Oh, this thing she's talking
No,
about.
no, no,
Oh,
no, this thing.
Yeah, no, that's, oh, I thought you were talking about
No,
R2D2 over
I
in the
just
corner
real,
there.
my mind is like, what is that?
Speaker.
Just don't pay any attention.
Bob.
Ignore it.
I need,
Just ignore it.
I need some
It's
water.
Bob?
Bob.
What is, no, but what is it?
It picks up sound for, it's tied, I think, to the updated audio video system.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not-
Does the camera go to the voice too, if you're talking, is it the camera goes?
I don't know.
Just refer to it as Hal. But don't ask him to open the pod bay doors, 'cause
Okay. All right.
You need more.
The next public hearing item in front of us this evening is PB 2215, which is the modification of a stormwater management and a special permit for a flexible development for 85 Carlisle Road, Anne Marique Way, Parker Landing Subdivision. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from the law firm of Farrell and Robbins. Also with me tonight is Jeff Brem, the project engineer, and the project owners, Lauren Cusano, Don Cusano, and Jeff Cenarium. We're here tonight for a continued public hearing. I'll just give you a brief overview of what we've done since the last meeting, and I have to say, the staff has been awesome. Really have worked hard to try to do everything that we set out to do at the last meeting. Everything is done. We've met out on site with engineering. We have comments. Thank the engineering department for getting those done so quickly. We've had a conversation and a meeting on site with Lieutenant Parsons. We have his comments. We'll include those conditions in the plan. We've reviewed all of the comments that have come in since the last meeting. We have no issue whatsoever with the proposed conditions from engineering or the proposed requests from Lieutenant Parsons. All are very reasonable. We've gone through the proposed decisions that staff put together. I have a couple issues we can raise. While we go through them, we can do it any way you'd like, Mr. Chair, if you want to run through, and then when we get to that section, I can bring it up. But I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have as well.
Okay. Great. Any comments from town staff, Joe or Jeff?
No, just engineering and the applicant, they've been very cooperative, so it was a team effort, so.
Paul, anything?
No, Mr. Chair, not specifically, but I anticipate at some point in the conversation, they're gonna talk about doing some work out there. And we've given some consideration to that, and we think there is a path for them to do some reclaiming on the road area, as long as they're able to separate out those organics, which are the cause of needing to reclaim the road. But I'll leave that to the presentation.
Sure. And the condition in the engineering memo points to the roadway. We're actually going to be completely tearing up the roadway. Engineering has been nice enough to say that we can reuse some of the material on site, but as Paul has stated, well, there's some trees and some other things that have grown through the pavement, so those will actually have to be removed in order to use any of that back on site. So we appreciate that we may be able to use some of the material if we can fulfill that requirement. I saw the condition in the engineering memo, and we're completely fine with that requirement for reusing anything on site.
Great. Do you have more of a presentation to give this evening about? for the
No,
project?
just when we start going through the decision, I can answer any questions the board may have. I think the other thing the board had brought up is about access to the site. It's quite overgrown, just to make sure that we could see properly left and right. Engineering did look at that, and we do have to cut back some of the material on site, some of the trees and the bushes that have grown in. It's a condition in the engineering memo, and we're satisfied with their request.
Yep.
It is in the area, Mr. Chair, of the cistern, which they're gonna have to maintain. They're not gonna be allowed, the fire department won't allow them to just let it get overgrown again, so.
Right, right.
Yeah, so let's talk about the cistern. There is a cistern already built out there. It
Yeah.
was a 10,000-gallon cistern. We looked at it with the fire department. We opened the cover. It's full of water, so that part's good. We don't have to look at it at all, do any work to it structurally sound. However, the access to it goes up a hill and down a hill a little bit. So we have to grade that out. Not a big deal. Obviously, that'll be part of the work out in front. And there's no fittings put on there. So we went over the fact that we have to put all the, the suction, the pumps, and the various fittings. None of them are there. We sent the plan design to the Lieutenant Parsons, and he's okayed the fittings. He just wants to be there when they go in and inspect it, do his normal thing. So the good news is the cistern's there. It's functioning properly. It's just not 100% complete. There is also an issue that you should know about, because you may not know about, these guys may not know about. It's not in the location that was originally on the plan. Now, that doesn't really mean anything except for we have an easement around it, and the easement needs to move before we sign the plans.
Yep.
So my office has to go locate exactly where it is, so that when I draw the easement around it, it's in the right location. That would be done prior to the endorsement of the plans. We just need to move the easement over. You should be aware of that. That would be the only thing I think we need to change, other than the comments that were already in the memo that engineering did want some things changed and added and verified on site, and we're good with all those.
Was there a note in here about enlarging it?
Yeah.
Making it
So
larger?
that's what the lieutenant looked at. He was thinking about if it wasn't built, he would want a 30,000-gallon cistern, because the rules have changed since then. But because it's already there, it was already originally approved, he was fine with it being 10,000 gallons.
Okay.
And that's why he sent Mr. Chair, that's why he sent the revised memo, I think late last week, saying that he was satisfied with the structure, but he had those requests that the access be maintained, that the basin be maintained, and there was also the standard condition in one of your decisions that before the Y turnaround is installed, that he comes out and inspects it at the basic level to make sure that it's set properly.
Yep.
We're satisfied with all of those.
Okay. There's a letter from Town Historic requesting maybe some stone walls?
Yes, and that was actually, I think, in your packet for the last meeting. We had submitted the plans to them. They did like the plans, and we're gonna continue to work with them to put that wall in the location that they're looking for.
Okay.
It really is going along with the original house. There was a stone wall along that area, so it'll look nice there anyway, once the development's complete.
Okay. Great. Anything else from the applicant then? No?
No, that is all.
All right, let's go to the board for any comments that you may have on this project. Darren?
No, I saw comments were addressed from, fire and engineering, and, no, I have no further comments.
Great. Mike?
You guys have answered my questions this evening. Sightline was a concern, and I think that's been answered, so I'm fine with it.
Great. Kate?
I just had some comments on the decisions and on the bond, because the ones where you have like 273 of something instead of $40, it's $10. Does that mean you're going to reuse 75% of what's there and only need 10% more? How do we
Yeah, so
interpret that?
let's go through that. So Jeremy and I went through this. He suggested some changes, so it wasn't submitted and approved right away. The arithmetic on the bottom was adjusted. But Exactly, so the curbing is the one you were probably referring to, the granite curbing is.
And gravel and stuff.
And gravel, so the idea is to reclaim what's there. Curbing is easy to reclaim, you pick it up, you move it, put it aside, put it back. Some of the gravel, we're expecting most of it to be reclaimed as well. As Paul said, some of it may be contaminated by some of the roots and other organic material that would be disposed of and brought in. So most of that's why all the asterisks are there, is to use the existing material where we can. And I made some assumptions, and Paul and Jeremy agreed with those assumptions.
It's unusual though, Kate, because I thought the same thing when I saw it, but it's because generally in Westford, you can't use any recycled material whatsoever. And I did speak to engineering about this today, but it's because we have a unique site out here where the material is already there. So we can reuse the material that is actually on this site, as long as we can get the organic material out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
So we are paying a lot more attention to Form Gs now. It's just, in the present climate and economy, one never knows when things are gonna change radically and the town's gonna inherit the need to do something out there. So but we were satisfied with this number. With escalations and the ENR and everything else, really gives us a good incentive for the developer to finish the project.
Which we all want. It's been sitting here for 17 years.
Yep. So I don't know, if, on the decisions.
Yep.
Let's see, the first decision for the modification to the definitive subdivision plan, it's just a typo on page 2, which is page 100 in the packet. Where is it? On the record of proceedings, number 2, it says, on August 16th, 2021, we opened the concurrent public hearings, but we really opened them in May 16th, 2022.
Thank you, Kate.
And on the flex development one, page 4, which is page 113 in the packet, there was a couple of conflicting sentences. Just needed for clarification. Let's see. On page 4, on the bottom, number 1, it's talking about the open space, and it says this land has been transferred to the town. And then on the next page, number 3, it's talking about the rear of lots 2 and 3, but it also mentions the open space parcel. And it says the applicant has indicated that this land will not be transferred to the town. So I don't know if you want to just get rid of the reference to the open space parcel in that condition or something.
Maybe we could check with the applicant. I think the open space land has already been transferred, so we could strike that reference under item 3, Kate.
Yeah, just get rid of it. But I don't know if they want to keep the fact that parts of lots 2 and 3 are not going to be.
Right, so just get rid of these last sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the open space, Mr. Chair, may have to be reconveyed. So and it's a requirement anyway, so I'm fine with the conditions staying in there, but the rear, and that portion that says the rear of lots 2 and 3 won't be conveyed is fine.
Okay.
Okay. The 50% of setbacks, I haven't had a chance to review our flexible development bylaw, but it's a reference to keeping the 50% setbacks. Is that because of our flexible development, or is that because of the?
Flexible development, you have that discretion.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured.
We merely ask that the applicant show it graphically on the plans to eliminate possible confusion down the road when the commissioner is looking at any proposals, so it's clear what the setbacks are in this particular case.
Okay, makes sense. And then On the stormwater one, on page 4, which is page 122 in the packet, just a reminder that it says June XX, so on number 3, to put it, make it June 6th.
Yeah, we try to leave those, you know, in case the board for some reason continues, so we'll
Yeah.
fix that.
Yeah, and that's all I had.
Great.
Mr. Chair, just while we're
Yes.
on this page, do you
Yep.
mind if, my only addition that I wanted, was to, procedurally at this point, we will have to update the Mylars. We'll have to come back to the board for the July meeting, and then once the Mylars are endorsed and everything's recorded, then we would have our pre-construction meeting. And the pre-construction meeting, I think, has to be 14 days, or they have 14 days after we actually request it. That's some time out. The client would like to start removing the existing pavement that's there today, so we wouldn't commence any other site construction, or start construction on any of the houses. That would all start after the pre-construction meeting.
Yep.
But we wanted to ask for an exception that we could start the roadway work prior to the pre-construction meeting. That condition shows up on every single one of these decisions, but in the stormwater, it's condition 6 in condition 6 on this page. So I would just ask that there be an exception placed in here that roadway demolition can take place prior to the pre-construction meeting with oversight from the engineering department.
We had talked about this before with the applicant and don't anticipate any problems. Again, is provided that they give us the adequate construction entrance and keep materials out of our way. But in notice to us so that we can be present when you're.
So you'd like condition 6 on the stormwater management permit to read something like, prior to the commencement of any construction or site work excluding demolition of the existing roadway?
Correct.
And reclamation of the materials, perhaps?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't need that on the others?
I will need them. I can cite
Okay.
to staff where those exact same
Okay.
conditions are in the other 2 decisions, but they're duplicates of this. So I would put the same except for language in both of those
So
other
just a quick,
decisions.
head sanity check of the board. Does the board have any issue with the applicant starting some road, I guess, reclamation, really, right?
Yeah.
Bob, any concerns on your side? I'm sorry.
Sure.
No, other than, are there any controls, erosion controls that must be in place for that?
Yes, and we're actually installing those, so, and we'll make sure that all the erosion controls are in place necessary for the roadway and inspected by staff before doing anything out there.
So I guess, Joe, it just
That's
sounds,
fine.
yeah, so Joe, I guess it sounds like we would just want to make it clear that, the roadway, I guess, demolition and reclaiming the materials is fine as long as it's overseen by engineering, and we'll trust the town engineering will make sure that erosion controls are in place.
I anticipate that you're gonna remove and stack the curbing on site. So you won't be taking bad stuff off of the site.
Correct. Okay, great,
Thank you very much.
yeah. Kate, had you finished your comments?
done, yeah.
Okay, Bob, do you have any comments on any of the draft decisions?
Actually, I have a question, not on the draft decision, but on the letter from the Historic Commission review.
Yes.
And I agree with the wall. I was a little confused by in there that it sounded like some kind of a farmhouse design might have been presented to the Historic Commission. Is that in fact true?
Yes. Yep, we've submitted the architectural plans for their review, and they accepted what we had shown them. And there was a condition in the previous decision that required that if we couldn't save the house that had previously been on site, which has since been demolished, or move it to another site, that we had to submit a house plan that was satisfactory to the Historic Commission that was a farm-style house. So it has been reviewed and approved by Historic Commission.
Yeah, no, I was involved in that when it was discussed, so I do recall that. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering if I don't think those plans have been shared with the planning board though, is that correct?
I think they may have been copied in the original packet, but I didn't present them here, no.
Okay.
The building
All
plans?
right. So I'm just making sure to my fellow committee members, I want to make sure that that agreement is reflected in our conditions. I want to ensure that we capture that in the conditions.
Are we simply referring to the current house that's approved by Historic Commission?
Yes, I mean, the plans, I mean, they got plans, and I'd like to make sure that, we capture that the, project will be built in accordance with those plans, because I think if there's any changes to those, and they're not in our conditions, we would not necessarily be able to enforce the conditions of the Historic Commission.
I mean, the architectural plans.
Yes.
Understood, that's fair game for that lot closest
Yes.
to the road.
Yeah, and the architectural plans are part of the initial application, which is quite large and full of plans, so I can see why it wasn't clear that those were the approved plans from the Historic Commission, but I think at the time I submitted, Historic hadn't sent that letter yet, so I wasn't sure that they're approved, but we're satisfied with an additional condition that says that we will restate the original condition, Jeff.
Okay.
Okay.
So Bob, that will be added.
Thank you. That's all, my only comment. Again, I've been working this project now for close to, 18, 19 years, so looking forward to seeing it realized.
Yep.
Bob, I would say in the definitive subdivision decision, it does include the floor plans and elevations as part of the material.
I think it makes sense to include it in the special permit one, where the board has more discretion, so we'll take care of that.
Alrighty.
Okay. And I didn't have any specific comments outside of what the board has already offered, so. With that, if there's no other comment from town staff, nope, then anybody here in the audience tonight to speak to PB 2215, 85 Carlisle Road? Okay.
Move that we close the public hearing.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing on PB 2215. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay. We have to do each of these individually?
No, you can lump them.
Right.
I move that we vote to endorse the draft decisions.
Approve.
Move, what?
Approve.
Approve.
Yep.
The draft decisions as discussed tonight for PB 2215, 85 Carlisle Road, modification of a special permit for a flexible development into definitive subdivision and stormwater management permit.
As revised.
As amended
As
this
amended.
evening with our comments and the board's discussion.
Yeah, great.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Thank you very much.
Great. Good luck with the project.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Mr. Chair, as you move into
good
your
luck.
general business,
To go hunt them.
I was planning to make good my escape, but B, under general business, I've gone through with the planner and the director, the proposed mitigations, and find them fair and acceptable to the engineering department, but Jeff is more familiar with my comments if you need anything else.
Okay.
If you don't mind, before it gets dark.
Don't mind. That's fine. We are going to take a brief recess. So 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whenever Kate gets back. Thank you for that.
Good.
I'll take advantage of it.
on Saturday.
Yes.
Maybe.
Assuming I can get out of New York City on Friday evening and it's not a downpour. New York City. New York City. I go Wednesday to Friday.
I think it might just be the flat architectural plan, but that won't, the house is actually, oh, you mean the lot one orientation, the house face part of it? I'm not sure, I'll have to look. I don't know what the second is. That would be okay. No, but the house may be front of it, and the garage may be back, I'm not sure, I'll have to look at it. Yeah. I know.
Couldn't figure out the orientation of that one.
Right. What's funny is that I never knew that was there, and I go to Parker Village with my kids.
Well, it hasn't been there for a while, but it
I
was,
sort
that's
of
where,
see like where it is. No, this is clean, right?
yeah, and there were tons of lilacs in the front.
They play funny games down there. I know the town engineer, city
I can't remember.
yeah, that's.
Joe, you're well prepared with the next graphic for us. That's great.
Can you easily go back to the historic house?
You want the architecture?
Aaron, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, Bob, are you with us?
Sorry, I'm okay with that.
All right, we're gonna come to order again. All right, great. So that concludes the public hearing items for this evening. We move on to general business, and we start with topic A, which is PB 1834. The applicant for the 60 Littleton Road project, also known as the Helena Crocker Residences. The applicant is requesting the approval of the final landscaping plan for the project. Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. Sorry, I told Scott to get up here too early. Scott's not on this project. I'm here tonight for SEG development for the Helena Crocker Residences. There was a requirement in the permit that we just come back to the board so that they could see the final landscape plan. And you know what, there is a final landscape plan, but I gave you 3 sheets just because they all show a little something different. This is the general landscape plan. You can see the areas that are gonna be landscaped along the front of the building. There's a main landscaping right at the front of the building. Just because I can't see the north-south, I'm going to say if you're street side looking left, there is a planted area. Right in front of the building, there is a sign. And then there's that row of trees there that Joe was just pointing to are actually just to cover the electrical area there that's between the building and the roadway. So that will look nice. Behind the building, that will be all loamed and seeded. To the rear of the building, what you're looking at right there is actually a patio area. It's a weird crosshatch just because the wetland resource area is also shown there as well. That will be a standard New England wildflower seed mix that's been chosen by the Conservation Commission in that area, so that will be very nice behind that patio area. The pavers you see right there are actually pervious pavers for the fire truck turnaround. But just to try to block some of that area from the building, you can see that there's a couple landscaped areas to the rear. We pulled those back as tight as we could, given our limitations for conservation. As you're coming up to the right side of the building there, just on the other side, that's all gonna be loamed and seeded as well. I know you can see some construction area, but that's actually all going to be grass. The front of the building, although that it will be mostly sidewalks, there's a handicap ramp. The big crosshatched area in the middle is actually a drop-off area. And then instead of putting landscaping in front, because there's windows there, and I understand now that residents like to have the front windows because they can see what's going on and who's coming and going. What they agreed to do instead was to use bollards that would also be used for a safety purpose, but they'll be landscaped on top. And that was one of the reasons I gave you the other sheet, is you could see that the landscape bollards, although they do not show up on this landscape plan, they are shown on that sheet 101. So that it's this one. So you can see that there's going to be the landscape bollards installed along the front of the building, and I think that will look lovely. And really, that's a general overview of the landscape plan. It's pretty straightforward. I just wanted to make sure the board had an opportunity to see it. We're very excited to get going out here. We actually have requested our pre-construction meeting. Mickey's very happy. So we're very, very happy that we have funding and this is all moving forward and construction will start very soon. But I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Great. Awesome, thank you. Darren, any comments on the landscape plan?
No, it looks consistent with what we talked about initially, so it looks great.
Yeah. Mike?
I'm good.
Kate?
None, I just thank you for your perseverance, and it's been a long time, I know, getting the funding and such, and getting the state approval, so good work for you.
It's exciting. I'm
So
really
when,
excited.
so when are you gonna start?
This actually starts in, we have a projected start time right now, the last week in June. But we have pre-construction, I think, next.
16th.
The 16th, yeah, so within a couple weeks of that, I mean, really, we're starting to get ready and get organized to get out there, so it's very exciting.
Great.
Bob, any comments on the landscaping plan for 60 Littleton Road?
I did have one question. Looking at the plan, I noticed the conservation signposts that are placed on the eastern side of the property. I didn't notice any others on the southern side. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's clear, there's a very clear demarcation to the rear of where it ends. And I know it's probably hard to see, but there is a landscape planting area, and then the pervious pavers, and then it ends, so that there is a very clear line of where the conservation area starts back there, but over to the grass side, it goes grass to a graded area to a tree line, so it's not clear over there. So conservation have requested we put a sign in, and it was easy to do. So we did agree to put a sign on that area where it's not clear.
Okay, no, thank you, I appreciate that. That's all.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, and I think the plan looks great. I mean, it's a fairly tight site, and there's a good amount of hardscape, so I think you guys have done a really nice job doing what you can with the site to add quite a bit of landscaping to it, so nice job.
I forgot to mention to Bob's point too, that there is a retaining wall that runs, I'm looking, it's right in my face, so I just figure I should mention, it actually runs as an L, so there is a very clear demarcation of where conservation area is right there.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the final landscape plan for the PB 1834 Helena Crocker Residences at 60 Littleton Road?
Second?
Motion and a second to approve the landscape plan. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Appreciate all your efforts.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. I'm staying still.
All right.
One more.
The next general business topic is item B. It is PB 1924, site plan review, stormwater management permit, 21 and 23 Carlisle Road, Balsam Circle. Requesting a discussion and possible action prior to condition of approval pertaining to the proposed sidewalk on Carlisle Road. Hello again.
Hello again. Again, for the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from the law firm of Farrell and Robbins. I'm here tonight with Scott Clark. As the board may be aware, there's a condition in your permit that states that we can either build the sidewalk or do a payment in lieu of the sidewalk. I generally wouldn't come present to the board, I would just deal with the bond, but I just want to let you know, we really did try to build this sidewalk. It's become very, very difficult. The area, there is enough area between Carlisle Road and the roadway layout in order to put the sidewalk, but as we tried to put it in and deal with engineering issues, it just was not possible to put the sidewalk in. The biggest issue is there's already a flooding issue at the end of Liberty Way, and when we put in our sidewalk, it was actually going to exacerbate that flooding issue, and the only way to deal with it is to get an easement on the private property, which is a residential property. If you're coming out of Liberty Way and taking a right, there's another private residential property right there, and we could not get that easement. The Liberty Way Condo Association was willing to work with us, but we couldn't obtain the other easement. We tried to do one more design, work through it, and see if we could make the drainage work without them, and we could not. So it's unfortunate. So I think you saw my unusual request. We did get a bond number here from a third-party engineer. I know Mr. Starrett said he agreed with it. But we're asking it to be rounded down only because we already did spend a significant amount of money trying to actually build the sidewalk. So we're asking for a payment in lieu of $40,000, which isn't the full amount that we've paid out, but we just think it's a reasonable amount to take off the bond, given that we've actually tried out here.
Yep.
Hopefully it can get picked up in the town's next master plan to go down Carlisle Road. I know that is the ultimate plan, so hopefully when it gets down to that point, they can pick up the flooding issue and deal with it going from Liberty towards 110. But we can't deal with it as private developers despite Mr. Clark's efforts towards it. So I'm here tonight just to request the board allow us to do the payment in lieu of $40,000.
Great. Darren, any comments?
No, I appreciate the work and the effort in trying to get the sidewalk in. But, you know, obviously run into a stone wall there. So no, I agree. I think you guys, best efforts, you put a lot of work into trying to get the sidewalk actually in.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that $40,000 number.
Yeah. Mike?
I agree with Darren.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for trying. I know pedestrian safety, this whole road is very difficult with easement issues. And did you run the numbers by engineering?
Yes, that was what Mr. Starrett was saying on his way out. He didn't want to stay for the meeting, but he said he was satisfied with the numbers.
He said he was satisfied.
Yeah, okay, great.
I can confirm that.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, I think the town did benefit from their efforts because they got some more detailed information about some of the problems that they have to address with their consultants. So not only are we getting some good money, but we also have some more detailed knowledge that we did not have before their efforts, so, thanks. Yeah.
Not all the effort was in vain.
No, we learned some things.
Bob, any comments on the fee?
I think Jeff may have addressed my one concern, and that was, since we in effect are paying the $5,900, have we received the technical hearing product that resulted from that expenditure of funds?
Well, Paul is not here to speak to that directly, but my opinion, based upon the numerous conversations and the detailed examinations of solving drainage in the right-of-way and outside of the right-of-way, I think engineering is in a far better place than they were before this project, so.
Yeah, and we've given them all the plans. We've given them all of our detailed engineering information. We've gone back and forth with the drainage, and we're happy to give them any other plans that they would like in that area. So it won't be in vain. And I think that there is good information that was as a result of this.
Got it. So,
All
Joe,
right, so yeah, so my be that I request all plans that were produced be delivered to the town, and I'm fine with it.
okay, thanks, Bob. And I similarly, I would echo Bob's comments. I think that's fine.
Yes.
Joe, procedurally, what are we doing here? Are we approving this fee in lieu of, or do we have to amend the initial decision? What are we doing?
Sorry, I'm on the hook for this one.
Oh, okay. Trying to defer to Joe.
So you're simply approving the fee in lieu as adjusted by, as discussed tonight. So you're just
Great.
setting the value.
Is
'Cause
there-
they had that right to go that option in the first place.
Great. Is there a motion to approve $40,000, a $40,000 gift to the sidewalk fund in town in lieu of construction of a sidewalk for PB 1924 with the condition, as Bob stated this evening, to provide any engineering work that was done to try to construct the sidewalk to the town?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm out of your
Thank
hair. Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Okay, that brings us to general business topic C, which is the electric vehicle working group, providing an update pertaining to proposed bylaw amendments. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Members of the board. I'm constitute chair of the EV charging stations working group as formed by the planning board. I'd just like to give you an update on our progress here, give you a quick summary, and then make a request at the end.
Excellent.
Okay, one of the charges was to take a look at the need for charging stations in town. And we didn't have to do too much work because just the explosive big shot in the arm here of sales of EVs across the country. Just in the first quarter, we have data for EV sales shot up 60% of all new car sales, whereas new car sales dropped 18%. We have approximately 3.4 million vehicles registered throughout the country, and only 4.6% are EVs, and that is projected to grow even greater because of this last quarter's statistics on EV sales. So that took care of one of the charges, an easy charge there. So let me first take this opportunity to thank the working group here. We've got a bunch of really diligent, hardworking folks here. We've got Jerry DeBillo, Jeremy Arnold, Tom Teller, and Bob Schaffer here, who stayed up quite late on our meetings here. So I'd like to thank this group there. They really put in a big effort here in the 8 months that the group has been together. So our approach was to take a look at the charge from the planning board and then structure our research around that. We've gotten recently advice from town council that we should not really try to do anything with residential units or anything associated with residential units. The group had high hopes that we could sort of mandate charging stations in private residences, but the town council said, hey, in order for any of our recommendations to pass, we really should not talk about residential. So that took a big chunk out of the principal uses in the zoning bylaws here.
Does that include like apartment buildings?
Yes.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. Any multifamilies units there, we'll let go for a later time, because the state will talk about residential units there as we move forward to net zero 2050. Not too many years left. So we got the charge, and we took a look. We did quite a bit of research. We looked at a lot of municipalities, various municipalities across the country. They took a couple of approaches here, whether they set up zoning specifically for electric vehicle charging stations, or if they integrated any zoning amendments into the current zoning bylaws. So we've taken that approach there, how we can integrate any proposed amendments into our current zoning bylaws. Have to thank Sierra and Bob there for a lot of guidance there, and helping us. A bunch of neophytes here in the zoning, so both Bob and Sarah were considerably helpful in that respect. So we looked at a lot of municipalities there. We looked at the building and electrical codes. We looked at the MUTCD, the Manual for Uniform Traffic Signal signs. And we looked at what the ADA would require for accessibility. And we got some input from the business community with a terrific amount of help from the EDC, the Economic Development Committee there. They helped us quite a bit in getting input from the business community. So we have arrived at some proposed amendments. We're talking about amendments that affect in the zoning, the current zoning, the definitions, appendices A, B, and D. So what we plan to do is we would like for your July 18th meeting, we'll try to get you in advance our proposed amendments. And this is in hopes that you'll take a look at it and support an amendment or amendments to the zoning bylaws for the October special town meeting. So if we get these to you by July, your July meeting, I hope that's sufficient time to get the public hearings and your reviews and whatever else that needs to be done, so that you can sponsor these amendments to the town meeting. So any questions of what we've tried to do?
Oh, that sounds good. I mean, we generally like to keep those meetings open for public hearings for 2 meetings, right, Jeff? So, I mean,
Yes.
if we open a public hearing on July 18th that gives us plenty of time before October to.
Well, I think the working group would be bringing back their proposal to you to discuss on the 18th. That
Yep.
wouldn't be the start of a public hearing,
Okay.
because you don't have that language. We need a bunch of things for that to happen.
True.
So, I think it does make sense.
I think the intent here is to get the planning board's input
Right.
prior to publicly publishing the notice.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. But don't we need to get town council's involvement?
Oh, yes. So, town council's had a lot of involvement so far, so if we
Okay.
have, I know Sierra has that, we'll have that draft language, working with you folks. We'll vet that through council.
Okay.
Try to have that,
Okay, so the language that we're gonna get is gonna have been sort of pre-screened, if you will, by town council.
if timing allows, yes.
Okay, great.
We're only talking about commercial properties,
Yeah.
any MCPs, yeah, basically, commercial and industrial.
Yep, yep. Okay, great.
So we worked up the amendments, proposed amendments, to be from whatever the parking requirements are for these projects here. We would take a percentage of those parking requirements. For example, it's the last example, the Makepeace Road, you had 68 parking spaces, so we would take a percentage of 68 and propose that, say, 10% would be devoted to EV charging stations. installed charging stations, so. We have some funding sources or grants that these industrial and commercial operations can try to tap into, so they won't have to bear the full burden of the charges. So we'll provide a table of those sources so that any commercial establishments there that need to get the funding, which they, from the feedback I've gotten, that was the major obstacle to provide charging stations, is just the cost of such.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, so that sounds great.
No, in your research, you said, what, there was 18 million cars in the US and what, 4%?
3.4 million cars,
And what percentage are electric vehicles right now?
4.6%.
All right, so I wonder, how many vehicles are registered in Westford? I'm just curious.
1,200. 1,200 electric vehicles. We have 50 charging stations. It's hard to project how many charging stations we need, because in a town like Westford, most of those charging stations are in homes. So of the 12, offsetting that, though, is that during the day, our population of 24,000 people, and this is from a business group here in Route 3, the Route 3 corridor, they say could easily increase 50 to 70% just by having employees, visitors, shoppers, or something like that.
Sure.
And we only have 50 charging stations. So there's a vast need, and if we can motivate some of these commercial properties to install a charging station, we'll be on the road to 2050.
Yeah, great. All right. Looking forward to seeing the work in July then. Sounds exciting.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you,
effort
Chauncey.
and for chairing
you.
this working group.
Thanks.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you, Chauncey.
All right. Look forward to that in July.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
I assume, Emily Taylor, 9 Texas Road, I assume there would be a placeholder on the special town meeting warrant for this, because it sounds like it's going to be close in terms of timeline, July, August, September, so.
This, shortly before our annual town meeting, I might get my head ripped off if we start talking about placeholders. We usually don't do that until after we've had the previous town meeting.
I know.
So when the town meeting timeline gets published for the special town meeting, that's when we'll start putting in the placeholder requests.
And that wouldn't happen till after the July meeting. I'm thinking after July, not now.
Oh, okay. I
So,
thought you were.
no, when it comes back in July, you're not gonna have a public hearing, then you're gonna have to have 2 public hearings, and so I'm saying
placeholders
in
are
July.
easy.
Yeah, okay.
I just
That's
can't
what I'm
ask
thinking about.
in June right now.
No, I get that. And also, it would be nice as you hear stuff, and I know you probably can't do anything formal, but I just went out and talked to Mr. Clark and said, would you think about putting in the infrastructure for EV charging stations? Not putting in the stations, but putting in the structure while you're working on it. And Melissa said, well, with federal money, there might be a requirement for that, so she's gonna check into it. But it might be nice, like the Makepeace thing, I thought about, obviously my husband's on the subcommittee and we have a charger in our driveway and we have an EV. So I thought about saying, could any of those be dedicated during the building to the infrastructure, not the charging station, but while you're doing that. But anyway, I know you have to abide by the laws, but the suggestions are good.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay. That brings us to general business topic D, which is discussion about possible zoning bylaw amendments for accessory dwelling units, commercial recreation overlay district, and creation of a tiered site plan review system. Joe.
So for accessory dwelling units, it was sent to council following meeting with this board and the zoning board of appeals.
Yep.
They really didn't have much comment at all. It was just within 3.3.4, number 1, to add some clarification to what we were talking about in terms of the word size. What directly were we referring to? So that's what the additions in blue are. Talking about not exceeding the gross floor area, the footprint, or the height of the primary dwelling unit. And then later on again, from the maximum gross floor area or footprint. So just adding a little bit of specificity there. Otherwise, no comments from town council on it.
You guys stumped the lawyers. Good job.
Not me.
Okay.
So that's pretty, I think, quick update.
Do you want us to, should we go item by item? That way we
Sure.
check them off the list. Great. Does the board have any comment on the language in the accessory dwelling unit section?
Makes sense.
I did on page 154 in the packet.
Okay.
The B there, within 90 days of when the premises is no longer used as the owner legal resident, but the property is not transferred, shall submit a new affidavit to the Board of Appeals. So what does that mean?
They move and rent it out? So if
They move, they've moved, but they haven't sold it?
So they're
or-
renting it out?
They're
to-
renting it.
So now they're renting a two-family instead of a single-family residence, so they no
Because the
longer-
ADU necessitates that the owner lives on the
No,
premise.
but what's this within 90 days of when it's no longer used by them, but the property has, I just didn't
Within 3
understand,
months.
I didn't understand the context.
If they start renting, within 3 months, they need to go before the Board of Appeals
Right.
and essentially submit.
Right,
an
it's no longer an
affidavit.
ADU, it's now a multifamily.
Right.
It
But
gave,
it says, but the property, but instead of, but it should be, and the property is not transferred ownership? Is that what you mean?
So sometimes there can be a delay or a gap, so.
I see what you're saying.
So someone could live in either the primary or accessory dwelling unit, and they change their legal residence to another location. It starts a window of time that they have to sort things out. And so one of the issues we have always had with the zoning board with these ADUs is it's chicken and egg. So for instance, no one can apply to the zoning board until they are the legal owner. They can make an affidavit about a property that they do not yet own. And so a lot of times they can't actually legally do what is required until they are the property owner. And so this gives a limited opportunity that we thought was a reasonable compromise of 3 months to get their ducks in a row, deal with that, and get the updated paperwork, and give the zoning board some flexibility to administratively, without a new public hearing process, to continue to legitimize the ADU, because that has been a problem where people have come in, they bought the house that has the ADU, they're all using it legitimately, there are 0 changes, but yet they were still required to have another public hearing process to approve what is unchanged, if that makes sense.
But which is the owner, the old owner or which owner is being referenced here?
I think Kate made a good point. Should that first but be an and? So within 90 days of when the premises is no longer used as the owner's legal residence and the property has not transferred ownership, as opposed to but.
Is it the owner who moved out, or is it the owner who's waiting
No,
to move
see,
in?
my problem here was simply doing an and. That is actually less, I think, restrictive. And so if they are not using it, even if it doesn't transfer,
Who's they?
say the current owner
The current
lives in
owner.
the primary.
Yeah.
Let's just say the primary. And say they no long, they change their residency, say they're there 5 months a year,
But they
and say they're
still
living
own it,
somewhere else
but they
7, they could
still
still own it.
Yes.
That is no longer, they are no longer using that as their primary dwelling unit or even accessory dwelling. That's in violation of the intent of the bylaw.
Yes.
So if you put in an and, that actually means that they could not live there, not use it as their primary or accessory, and that it doesn't trigger that.
Yeah.
But you're saying somebody who owns it but is not a legal resident because they're less than 6 months or whatever out of the year, so this isn't their legal resident. This makes it sound like they can go to the ZBA and say, well, I'm not living there, but I want to keep both of them as rental property.
Right, and it says that, but the board may consider further action up to and including termination. So if they say, well, I'm not living here, my handicapped son is, the ZBA can say, okay, well, the general intent is it's family in there, the primary owner isn't the primary resident, and continue on with allowing the ADU.
Right.
If something takes a special permit
Yes.
to authorize this, there's no administrative action, in my opinion, that can allow them to be contrary to the requirements of the zoning bylaw. If you would like us to have council look at the and versus but, we can do
yeah,
that.
because I don't understand it, and it's like I get conflicting senses, and even here.
So we'll have council look at the,
And what's the intent, and what's, you know, and what are the possible outcomes of whatever is supposed to happen?
okay, we'll clear that up with council.
Yeah.
That should be a short review.
Yes.
Yeah, right, uh-huh. But then you have to make the grammar so that I can understand it.
Okay, so, Bob, any discussion on the ADU document?
I just had one comment, in addition to what's already been discussed. And in 3.31, item 2, I think we need to work on the grammar. I understand the intent of the three objectives of sharing space, providing affordability, and sharing the burdens of home ownership. But I think there are some missing words, kind of along the lines of what I just said. To share space, increase affordability, and share the burdens of home ownership.
Yeah. I will say that,
written out, it's not comprehensible.
Yeah, I will say that was the one thing when I read it, it did read very awkwardly to me. I finally got there when I sort of like literally did a sentence breakdown, but I do agree that putting increase in front of affordability would help that sentence.
And share the home ownership.
And and share the burdens of home ownership. Yeah, I can see that as well.
Those are easy fixes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, you can do that.
Thanks, Bob. All right.
Yep.
Any further comments by the board?
Nope.
All right, I think we're very close on that one.
All right.
How exciting.
Great. All right, so we move on to the second one. Joe?
Actually, Jeff is on.
That's me,
Oh,
sorry.
Jeff, yes, the CROD.
The CROD. So, we'd like to respectfully suggest that the board consider the possibility of creating an overlay district for commercial recreation, specifically to benefit Kimball Farm and Neshoba Valley Ski Area. So, if you're not familiar, if you look at this sketch, only the first 200 feet of, I'll say Kimball's proper, is in the commercial highway zoning district, which is the only place in town, commercial highway zoning district, that the indoor-outdoor commercial recreation use is allowed with benefit of special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So every time that they go and they want to make a change or something different in the commercial highway, they usually need either a special permit or a modification to a special permit, which is then followed up with a planning board public hearing process. And that doesn't account for all of the property that's not CH. So there's a large chunk of Residence A, and there's a lot of development that's in there, and those are largely with benefit of use variance. So they, once again, they go to the zoning board, they either get a use variance, they modify the use variance, they come back to the planning board for another public hearing process. So their attorney has approached us about some long-term planning issues. They'd like to think about the long term, which we think is good and healthy. But from a permitting perspective, in many cases, they're coming out of the gate as a prohibited use. And so given their long-standing history with the town, many decades, I don't know how many public hearing processes, it seems to at least right to ask the question, does it make sense to have a special permit process where the planning board is the special permit granting authority that would have the number of public hearings? It gives greater discretion to authorize. It seems consistent with what has been going on there for many decades. And I just think it would really streamline permitting for Kimball Farms. So I think we're obligated to at least ask the question. And then Neshoba is actually a worse situation because most of their developed property isn't even in the commercial highway zoning district. So a lot of their use there really stems from an initial use variance granted, I forget what year, it's in the packet. So, and that's kind of stretched at the maximum. And without going into too much details, you know, they're also trying to think about making some changes perhaps, or at least exploring long-term options. And once again, they come out of the gate as a prohibited use. And so my sense is that they could benefit from bridging the gap between their peak seasons. They have certain portions of the year that they literally have nothing going on. I know that presents its own challenges. And no matter where you stand on, say, climate change, the fact of the matter is it is more inefficient, more expensive in order to maintain snow cover throughout their ski season. So I know they need to be exploring other ways to make their business successful. And I think an overlay district like this makes a lot of sense. And I think it still gives, it could be this board, a lot of discretion to evaluate any possible negative impacts, and gives you opportunities to mitigate what could be detrimental impacts. So I think it's at least worth considering, and we appreciate any questions you might have.
Sure. Mike, did you have anything on the CROD?
I don't have any questions. I'm certainly supportive of it.
Yeah. Darren?
Yeah, likewise. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Kate?
I can really see it for the ski area, just the way it is and what they do and such. And probably making snow it's not viable not viable the way the climate is. I do have an issue with Kimball's. I can appreciate them wanting to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
But there is that large tract in the back, and right now it's chapter 61, whichever letter 61 it is. And so easy. The payments are very minimal to get it out of 61. But the traffic there is horrendous already. And I'm kind of hesitant about making it easier for them to add. I could see it if the traffic is a really big part of a special permit process. There's also the sensitivity of that area with all the wetlands and the Schoberbrook and such, that I just hate the thought of them. If there were an overlay, I would want a really big limit on percent impervious.
So can I just...
And things like that.
Understood. So in some cases, there could be resource areas that is already going to be kind of practically off limits when it comes to Conservation Commission review. So would you be more concerned about percentages or performance in terms of protecting certain areas and only looking at certain types of development in certain portions of the site? Do you know what I mean? Like maybe there could be more outdoor recreation in areas that you are more sensitive?
Tough question. To me, performance and percentages are kind of tied together. I mean, research showing how the degradation in water quality as percent impervious increases and such, that even just because you put in some nice infiltration systems and detention basins, does that really mitigate the impervious? I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean, I appreciate what they're doing. I just, being a neighbor, I'm just sensitive to their creep.
Thank you. If board is amenable, we would certainly look at protective standards and features and considerations for those.
Can I take comments from Bob?
Sure.
Do you have any comments on the concept of the CRUD?
Fred?
No, I mean, the only thing that begged the question was I was reading the background and appreciated everything there. And I was just curious about permitting history for Kimball, which didn't get summarized in the background.
It's a very lengthy, permitting history that involves use variances, special permits, other special permits, I think to change or extend pre-existing non-conforming uses, modifications to special permits, modifications to variances, and subsequent public hearings with planning board, a lot for site plan review. So I don't know how many public hearings exactly there were, but I'm estimating roughly 10 plus or minus, could be more. It could be in the
But
teens.
I'm gonna guess those date back to what, the 90s or later? They don't go as far back as Neshoba, is that correct?
I'd have to check that because that's tricky because some of those uses at Kimball's were pre-existing non-conforming. But we can certainly check. That's something that we would do if the board had interest. We would do a lot more research. We're just trying to get high-level input from you folks to see if you have appetite for something for this.
Bob, how's your
Yeah,
appetite?
no, I'm very interested.
You are? I'm sorry, Bob.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. I am also interested. I mean, I agree with Mike and Darren's point. I think something like this is needed. I think I'm very mindful of what Kate mentioned, and I guess it would be helpful to sort of understand some of the history of how we got to where we are today with the Kimball's property.
Sure.
You know, I think great communities are built on more than just, you know, subdivisions. And I think, you know, both Neshoba Ski and Kimball's, you know, offer some great amenities to the town of Westford. Yeah, I would definitely be interested in understanding a little bit better how Kimball's, you know, kind of got to the state that it's in now. That history would be of definite interest. Sure. Because maybe we can think about this overlay district in a way that we can ensure that there are controls in place so that, you know, delicate portions of the parcel are maintained in a way that aren't detrimental to the environment or to the welfare of the community in general, but allows both of these organizations and you know, companies to remain viable for years to come so that future residents of Westford can benefit the same way all of us have from those two properties.
Great.
Plus, it's not just a Westford thing. I mean, they're.
It's really not, right?
They're Boston all
Yeah.
the way out,
Oh, yeah.
so it's, no, they're.
No, yeah, you're right.
They're benefiting them. Westford is paying for their
Well, you could also
attraction
Tax
to,
into this town
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
benefit
and-
employing our people.
And if people are coming to Westford
True.
to use those, they're in theory potentially spending dollars with other businesses in town. So
True.
it's
It
you know,
is,
it's a
yeah.
two-way street, Kate.
Yep.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that we vote to
Oh, wait.
authorize plain staff.
Hold on.
We have one more. Do we have something else?
We're handling each of the
Oh, I'm
breakouts
sorry,
individually.
okay.
So it sounds, I mean, I think we've heard enough to give staff instruction to continue the work, yeah? That's what you're going to put forward? Great.
I move that we vote to authorize planning staff to reach out to the potentially affected property owners and to work with town council to prepare a draft zoning bylaw amendment for consideration by the board that creates a commercial overlay district in support of Kimball Farm and the Neshoba Valley Ski Area.
Second.
Before we vote, the one thing I was going to ask, did you want to comment on something?
Well, it sounded like the board wanted first to have more historical information, but
Well,
I don't
I
know.
think we can get the ball rolling, right?
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to take action on it one way or the other. I think the motion is fine. The one thing I was going to ask, and I forgot this in my comments, are these the only two parcels we should be considering for this? Or should there be a
Yeah, I was wondering if
slightly?
this is like spot zoning.
Well, yeah, if we're talking about an overlay district, are there other areas along the 110 corridor that we should think about this? There are other overlay districts we are considering that are broader in scope.
So, there's a couple of things. So, recently, I did have some preliminary conversations with some representatives from Recreation Commission. And in my opinion, as it turns out, as you may or may not be aware, they are proposing a recreational facility. They'd like to have one, and all of the properties that they have suggested thus far, I believe, would be prohibited, because they are not in the commercial highway zoning district.
Right.
That was not the intention of this. This was for Kimball's and Neshoba. But once you have an overlay district, if the purpose is consistent with the intent, you know, it is certainly possible, and I would be surprised if they did not ask for their top site, wherever that is, maybe off Farmers Way, to be added to an overlay district. That's certainly a possibility. But there are also, there's another property, not on Littleton Road, but where there may be some existing indoor court facilities, perhaps on Liberty Way. Maybe you're familiar with. Perhaps, that folks have been inquiring about that, and can that be used as a indoor commercial recreation component? And it's like, that's actually very difficult permitting wise, the way our zoning bylaw is right now. And it's like, it's an existing facility.
Right.
And so there could be some permitting challenges for even that existing indoor space. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, and it seems like more and more people are certainly interested in recreational, whether indoor and out. And so it is a shortcoming, I think, of our bylaw. It only allows it in one zoning district. And it seems like if you have a special permit granting authority, maybe they should have a little more discretion, case-by-case basis, to see what might make sense. But we wanted to at least start by keeping it fairly limited, because it's a big change.
Thank you for reminding me. That was one of my comments, was because you're doing this for the benefit of specific property owners, does that make it spot zoning, which is not something, and are there other ways, like changing things in the use, allowed uses to come up with the same, a better thing, so that other parcels that could.
So it is possible you could simply change the use table. That would be far more reaching, where you could add districts, where you could designate, rather than say zoning board, planning board as a special permit granting authority, but that would then open it up to a lot more areas in town. And if that's the desire, that, so be it. I don't believe this would be considered spot zoning, but of course, with any overlay, we always check with council. Usually it's relatively small parcels of land, a couple acres or so or less. Each of these is, wildly larger than that. And it would be to the perceived detriment of the abutting property owners. I mean, you look at what Kimball's is now, you look at Neshoba, is there possible for expansion or growth if such a bylaw were in place? Yes, it's possible. Is it,
Is 22 Town Farm Road not commercial recreation at this point?
No, it is not. That is with benefit, though, of use variance, because that was sort of a pre-existing, non-conforming situation. So they got there through a different way. But not everyone has the same foothold of a pre-existing, non-conforming use.
No, I understand that.
So they're not in it, but.
I know. I just think, my friendly amendment to Mike's motion would just be to not limit it to only the Neshoba Valley Ski and Kimball Farm parcels, but, to rather look at this as something where, if what we're saying is that the town of Westford would benefit from having places where people who want to put in commercial recreation facilities, we should consider that holistically, not just for potentially two parcels.
Totally.
Yep. Absolutely with that.
Totally happy to do that. I'm just wondering, if this ever makes its way to town meeting, if there could be a way to simply vote on a district and then separately look at the individual tracts of land, because it's possible that there could be some tracts that folks don't have issue with, but there could be other tracts that could be a lot of opposition.
Sure.
And so there could be a way to, separate, who knows what's gonna be a problem for town meeting, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So we could approach it that way, and that way,
If you're gonna do, people are gonna wanna see the tracts of land.
No, I understand, but I mean, if there was just one vote, and say you have 10 different parcels of land, if you take all the folks who may be opposed to all of them and you add it up, maybe that is what prevents a 2/3 majority. But if you looked at the tracts of land and maybe one of them is a real problem for who knows, and that gets removed from the addition to an overlay district, then maybe you can get a 2/3 for the remainder, you know what I mean? So that there could be ways that we could attack that, but we're happy to look at that, we're happy to try some surveys and see who parcels for consideration, so.
Yeah, I mean, at least in my mind, I'm not going that far off of the 110 corridor, at least in my mind.
Okay.
You know, but I'm thinking of other parcels that are on the 110 corridor that could conceivably, that are large enough that could potentially benefit from an overlay district that would allow for commercial recreation.
I can think of a couple parcels.
Right. So,
We're
okay.
happy to do that.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, so motion and a second with a friendly amendment.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Darren, I think.
Thank you.
Motion and a second, directing town staff to do some work on this commercial recreation overlay district. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
I abstain.
Okay. Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, we're on to tiered site plan review system.
So,
Hi, Joe.
just given the time we have, I can either run through this quickly, or we could just go to different parts of the PowerPoint that was in your packet that you may have questions on, whichever you'd prefer, Mr. Chair.
It's the pleasure of the board.
I went through it, so I mean,
Yeah. I read through it as well. I mean,
I'm gonna hit the highlights.
Yeah,
and I think we've been talking about this for a little while now.
Executive summary?
I appreciate, I appreciate all the research you've done up until
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, so we just tried to, generate a high-level discussion. This was something of interest to the board a few years ago.
Yep.
Some major projects in town kind of shifted some priorities. Looking to get that back in front of you now. We kind of looked at, in the presentation, where we're at, and what does that imply? How is site plan review utilized throughout the Commonwealth? Just for, in general, the way the bylaw is now, pretty much any commercial or multifamily project is gonna require site plan review. The way the bylaw is written, technically, it should be a full site plan review with public notification requirements, public hearing. The board has used discretion over time to look at some projects that are really modest in scope to administratively review those. Staff did do some research on this. Since 2015, there's been 37 that have been going through an administrative review in front of the board. So you're talking about, half a dozen a year or so. So again, that, whether you're talking about a full-scale, development coming in or something that's a lot more modest for a small business looking to fill space, technically they're required to go through the same process with the public notification requirements. But I think the board recognizes that there could be some opportunities to try to streamline the permitting for some of those smaller projects. You have other communities in the Commonwealth that utilize a tiered system, some right around us, Pepperell, Chelmsford. And what you kind of see with two tiers is a minor and a major category. Minor is the kind of administrative process that you've utilized in the past. You come in front of the board, regularly scheduled meeting. There's no public notification, no public hearing process, but it's reviewed by the board. The major, whether you're talking a 2 or 3, that's the full scale. Notices go out, it's a public hearing. And then on a 3-tier side, there's even an administrative tier added where the board doesn't even see it. It's something that's, seems to be so banal that it just is reviewed by designated staff to go ahead and issue a decision for that. So look to give an example of what that could look like on a 3-tier system. So say for an administrative, you have something where a use is allowed by right in the underlying zoning district, and the parking requirement is equal to or less than the current use. And, for this purposes, assume there's plenty of parking available on site. An example of that could be like the board recently saw over on 175 Littleton Road. Supercuts moved in for an e-cigarette business over there. Then you go on what could be an example of a minor for a change of use condition. Use is allowed by right, again, in the underlying zoning district. Park requirement is greater than the current use, but there's still plenty of parking available on site that exists. Example, that could be something the board reviewed at 323 Littleton Road. Change from business professional office to retail, sales, or leasing of motor vehicles. And then a major, say the use is allowed by special permit, or the use is allowed by right, but they have to do, you know, changes to the parking lot, expand it, changes to drainage, et cetera. You know, something like 124 Main Street, lot 4, you have demolition of structures, you have converting a single to a 2, something like that, full site plan. There'll be considerations in the future for multifamily with the MBTA communities requirements that'll have to be considered over time, and as well existing conversion of a dwelling, which requires a special permit right now, and that's convert a single up to 4 units. Right now, kind of silent on if you had, for instance, a 2-family, you wanted to change it to a 3. You can't really use conversion of a dwelling for a special permit in this case, and you're probably talking use variance. Then just something to think about as we try to get some general direction before we maybe look at drafting bylaw language for the board's review. What are the, you know, the big considerations of the board in terms of parking lot? Is it amount of impervious surface that's getting added that may influence what you think could be a minor or a major or administrative? Is it traffic impacts? Is it the parking requirements themselves? What it could be? We'll skip around. Just talking about, you know, also thinking about parking requirements, incentives. We heard about EV charging stations. Maybe if folks are putting that in, maybe that influences what you may see. E-commerce just taking off, so just something to think about is maybe less parking is going to be necessary for more, and more deliveries are going to be happening. Temporary seasonal uses, so if folks want to remove parking and they want to have outdoor dining, it's going to be out there during the summer months. Does that need anything, any kind of review from the front of the board or at administrative level? If there are conditions of approval, can staff, if it was decided that a 3-tier system was what you were looking for, can staff put conditions of approval on a decision that's issued? Will there be different submission requirements based on what tier you're submitting at? Another thing to consider. And then we at one point thought about having little signs for each of the boards to think about, do you consider something like this an administrative, a minor, or a major? But we didn't go that route.
We did discuss it several times.
That would be pretty fun. It would be interesting.
Yeah. So some different scenarios to play out. So like, you know, in this example, change from retail use to restaurant use. Retail bylaw today is 1 space per 180 square feet. Restaurant parking is 1 space for every 3 seats. So say your space is 1,500 square feet. So for retail, you're required to have 9 spaces. So for restaurant was looking to have 30 seats. Now they need 10 spaces. Is that a minor? Is that a major? Is that administrative? 24 seats, so now it's only 8, so you're going down. Or what about, you know, 20 and 10? You're gonna have some outdoor and indoor seating. Now they're going more than 9 spaces, that's 10 spaces. So again, just things to think about. And we don't, you know, we just want to get some kind of general direction from the board again, in terms of bylaw amendments, you know, going through each of these kind of scenarios and what you may or may not be thinking at this point.
Yep. Great. I think that's a good backdrop. Let's switch order. Bob, do you have any comments on a tiered site plan review system?
No, I'm in favor of this. I appreciate all the work, very informative briefing materials, and yeah, I would like to pursue this, definitely.
Great.
That's it.
I agree. The only problem with your presentation is you're just showing all the things, and how do you create a change that's not specific, scenario specific, and yet make it general enough, but it covers everything? That's very tough.
Yeah.
General and clear.
Clear, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's It's a lot of subjective stuff. The only thing with the three-tiered one is that puts the onus on staff to decide whether or not it should be administrative.
No.
Yeah, the way the
No.
bylaw would be written,
Yeah, that would be the bylaw saying,
if you're meeting this threshold, you're a major, if you're, you know, at this threshold, you're a minor, and anything,
Yeah, well, right now, you guys are the ones who are making the call, and you're recommending to us that we think this could be treated as administrative.
actually, that is the building commissioner when he renders his opinions.
Okay.
And you are not required to take his opinions as an order. You have your own, it's up to you. You have your own discretion to choose how you want to approach
But
it.
we always do what you tell us to do, so.
But that would be the case going forward, too. I mean, if there was a,
I think
kind of a, one that was worth discussion, we just have a discussion about it. We still have that ability.
Mike, your thoughts?
I just think there would be less discretion, right, going forward.
Yeah.
So, which I'm fine with. I think
I
it'd be
think,
more
yeah.
black and white nailed down
Yeah.
in the bylaw.
Yeah.
But I like it, because right now, we have the discussion, we spend 20 minutes discussing if we should do administrative approval, whereas we could have the same discussion and we vote, yeah. It's a minor, we approve this minor change, you
Well, and
know?
the applicant has to wait until we have a meeting.
That's,
Yeah.
that's the other thing,
Yeah.
Is I think, I mean, what was interesting is that there's been 37 cases where this has happened, and, you know, I can't think of any in my time on the board where there's been a negative consequence for having allowed something to go through an administrative review.
I think the board has been very fair. I mean, while it may not be backed up in writing in the bylaw, I don't think you've made bad decisions and done bad things with your discretion. I think you were, careful to not want to cross that line. And so I think if anything, you've erred on the side of caution,
Yeah.
which is good. But it just makes sense, like, I mean, it's kind of, you've been doing this sort of unofficial practice now since, I think, before I started here.
Yeah.
So it just, why not codify what the practice has been? And we're just trying to get some
Yep.
high-level direction from you folks, like,
Yeah. Now, the change in use is such a clear example when, you know, the changed use is gonna require less parking, I mean,
I mean,
it's, you know,
No
why,
brainer.
why are we doing this, you know what I mean, honestly? And-
so if it's, but that's the direction we're looking for. If it's a change in use,
and it requires
Well-
less parking, then
Well,
you're
well,
considered
just
that.
a use
Administrative.
thing where nothing changes, no other
Right.
requirement changes.
right.
Not just parking, but anything
Right,
else.
right.
And then there's probably some things that, you know, if there's new construction of a certain size, you're probably gonna wanna see it anyhow,
Yeah.
even minor. But maybe if it's a minor size or square footage, or if it doesn't change the parking requirements, you know, then maybe that's something you care to look at as minor
Yep.
instead of a public hearing. And then the other thing we have to think about that was in Joe's slides are what makes sense to actually get recorded. Like, obviously, public hearings, kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Those should be recorded, and a lot of them are required to, all special permits.
Yeah.
But, you know, there isn't necessarily a requirement that even your site plans be recorded now, and then if you do a minor, you know, that can be a burden, particularly for small businesses to go through that process. So it sounds like if there's not a lot of actual construction happening, you might be more inclined to minor. Is that right?
Yeah.
I would agree.
And then maybe there's some limit, like if they're adding only like 2 parking spaces, or if they're doing something seasonally or something, maybe minor? Maybe?
Well, didn't get all the way around the horn. Mike, do you have any other comments on the concept in general?
No.
No. Darren?
No, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm in favor of the three-tier. I think it's great.
Yeah. Chelmsford and Pepperell, you said they have 2-tiered systems, right?
Pepperell definitely has 2, I think Chelmsford is a 3.
Okay. All right, so there are neighboring communities that we can look at how they've drafted this.
Yep.
I mean,
Get
I
their
agree. I'm in
feedback.
favor. I would like a 3-tiered system as long as it doesn't become overly cumbersome, because I think there are things that should just be administratively reviewed and approved. You know, when there was a couple of times where we heard offices that were being converted into like learning centers, but like very individual like tutoring services. This wasn't like a school, and I'm like, you know, these are not things that we should necessarily have to opine on. To, you know, a tenant just wants to occupy a space for a very slightly different use with no parking impact in an existing building, and the footprint of the building's not even going to change.
Mm-hmm.
To me, those seem like things that can just be handled by administrative staff.
Yep.
I agree.
So you think we have enough direction to take a stab at it, and maybe we can come back with some scenarios and voting cards?
Voting cards, I love the voting card idea.
Maybe must-see TV.
I like it. Even on the administrative one, you could just do a summary every couple meetings or something, like, hey, by the way, there were 3 things administratively handled.
But that would also be an opportunity to say, okay, I see you did this one administratively, I get why you thought you could, and yes, you can, but maybe we want to see that kind going forward for a while, because maybe it's, you know.
So we could get that in the correspondence part of the packet,
Yeah.
maybe every once a quarter or something,
Yeah.
and just get an update.
Just so we know what's going on, yeah.
Yeah.
And that way, if you need to make adjustments, like, you don't need to change, if you tell us that we want to see this type, even if the bylaw, you know, I mean, we can put that in, work that into the language, as long as we know that, to
Yeah.
have some flexibility, so.
Good.
Great. Okay.
Awesome.
Enough to get started?
I think so.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
thanks.
very much for the work.
Thank you.
It was very comprehensive. Okay. So that concludes general business topic D. We are on to general business topic E, which is board reorganization and appointments for the following positions for next year. Chair, Vice Chair, NIMCOG, Community Preservation Committee, Stormwater Panel, Pedestrian Safety Committee, and we have a request for a representative to attend a new working group. Should we handle these in order then?
Sure.
Great.
I nominate Dylan for chair.
Second.
Appreciate that.
Not waste any time on that, huh?
I appreciate the votes of support. Well, motion and any discussion?
You would accept the nomination?
I would accept the nomination if my colleagues feel that I should continue to do the job.
You've done a good job.
Yep.
Thank you, I appreciate
So we're
that.
happy letting you fill out your 2-year term.
Yeah. Thank you. Motion and a second, appointing Dylan O'Connor as chair of the planning board for another year. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Vice chair?
I nominate Mike.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Do you accept the
I
nomination?
accept the nomination, thank you.
Okay. Motion and a second for Mike as vice chair. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
Thank you.
All right, representative to NIMCOG. Darren?
Yeah, so I've had this for a while, so if anybody has any interest in doing NIMCOG, happy to have someone else be a new face. I don't mind doing it, but
What night is it?
it's Wednesday nights, once a month. It's generally the second Wednesday. So it's the same week we have our second meeting. But it's like Monday and Wednesday of that week. And the meetings are back to in-person, so they're in Lowell. And they're at 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights. They're generally an hour.
Yeah. Is there like a continuity element where you feel like there'd be a gap in continuity at this point, since you've had it for a while?
Like I said, I don't mind continuing on, but like I said, if somebody else is interested, happy to give someone else a shot at it.
I'm interested, but I can't do it on the Wednesday, so.
Oh, okay.
Nominate Darren?
Second. Motion and a second to have Darren Weist be our representative to NIMCOG. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren? Aye. I say aye. All right, we have representative to CPC. So I've done this for, I think, 2 years now? 3 years now. 2 or 3 years now. It's been a while. Great group. It's predominantly kicks up December, January timeframe, sometimes a little bit earlier, and then sometimes we're hearing things into the start of spring as we get ready for town meeting. But I don't mind continuing if you guys would like me to continue. I know, Kate, I think you were the representative before me. If you had an interest, or if somebody else has an interest, I'm happy to take on a different responsibility. But
Since you're the chair, you're not being overburdened, but are you?
no, it's fine. I mean, it's a good group, and, you know, what happens is you know, you have a lot of meetings, as you know, you have a lot of meetings in a short period of time, and then it kind of goes quiet for a long period of time, so it's fine.
I nominate, what's your name, Dylan?
Dylan. Second. Motion and a second for Dylan O'Connor to represent the board at the Community Preservation Committee. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. All right, we have a representative to the Stormwater Panel.
I'd be interested in that if anybody wants to, I
Go
don't know
for it.
You
Who
and
is it?
Charlie doing it?
No, I'm not.
It's a brand-new thing.
No, I thought you were, Dylan. Weren't you?
Oh, yeah, you
No, you're
are.
right, I am. We've only had
And
one
I'm
meeting.
the alternate.
We've only had one meeting, so yes, I am doing it. Doesn't come up much.
Okay.
They email you if you have to join a meeting. I've had one meeting, and it was basically as the ground rules for the. But if
The
you're
meeting.
interested,
Yeah, I'm interested.
by all means.
I'll nominate Mike.
Second. Motion and a second to nominate Mike as the representative to the Stormwater Panel. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
I'm-
Pedestrian Safety Committee.
I'm happy staying with that.
Nominate Kate?
Motion and a second to nominate Kate to the Pedestrian Safety Committee as our representative. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, we have been asked if we would have an interest in having a representative participate in the Net Zero Building Standards Working Group. This is not officially something that's been chartered by the Select Board as an official town committee, right?
That's correct. So it is an ad hoc committee. The select board is aware of them, and they have expressed certainly support for these efforts. But it is ad hoc, and I don't think there's any required sort of membership, like there isn't a mandate that a person from this committee and so forth. It's all kind of volunteer, meet as they can. There are some great things in their charge. There are some, as we know from earlier tonight, there are some limitations. I know they have an intention to try to take the municipal projects, find out standards that they'd like to have for those town projects going forward, because you can always impose your own restrictions on, on yourself and comply with standards higher than what's required by others. But there are some areas that, there was one meeting so far where we made it clear that there are some things that the planning board, hate to say it, you lack jurisdiction, because your power really stems from subdivision control law.
Yep.
And the zoning bylaw, which has to be consistent with Chapter 48, Mass
Yep.
General Law, which says you cannot regulate that which is covered by building code. And so that means you can't do, as we heard earlier, like a lot of mandates
Right.
on things covered by code, but that does not mean that there can't be opportunities for creating incentives. But you've got to, create meaningful incentives if you want people to abide by that. So it's
It's more of an information pipeline than anything, right? Of like what that group is working on and how, and then we could use that to affect our thinking on things like.
What I do think is that, well, it is ad hoc. They are looking for specific standards for municipal, and to the extent possible, they'd like to see how that can be translated into residential, commercial, non-municipal. And so, we have a lot of things going on. Our commissioner is not here at the moment, but a lot of these things may take changes to the state building code to filter through, but that's for mandates. But there could be other opportunities, and I think whether or not there's a formal member participating, or if you seek to get updates on occasion, that would be great to have benefit of what those folks are doing, because, it doesn't hurt to ask, even if you can't require, and so maybe you would have some ideas or thoughts that you would not have, otherwise have, if you're not getting either updates or participating, so.
Yep. Anyone have an interest in participating?
I'm already on an ad hoc committee that might eventually meet again.
It will.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that one's ad hoc, really. Post agendas.
Bob, I know your travel schedule is pretty tough, probably precludes participation in something like this?
Yeah, the question is if it's an ad hoc could they do Zoom and things like that?
What time of the day?
Well, that was,
You know?
that was one thing I noticed. I mean, I think is it Beth Perkins? Is that who?
Beth Perkins, yes.
She has me on the emails, and I did notice they were trying to organize a meeting for like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, last week or something, and I was like, okay, well, this is gonna be a little tricky for me. If this is the time of day that
That's
the
actually
meetings.
a time for me.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, again, I've seen two sort of meetings coming together, and it seemed like the people who were chiming in were making it seem like more afternoon and middle of the day worked better for their schedules, which
We
is
maybe
gonna be-
request at this point just updates from them,
Yeah.
and then at some point, you know, if it's,
Unless, Bob, you want to sit in on it, because it's interesting.
If it's the middle of the afternoon back there, I'm perfectly able to support those. That's easy.
The last meeting was at 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night here.
Okay.
But that was the first meeting, so I don't know what
Okay.
it's going to be, but
Okay.
it was in the evening.
There was emails flying around, people saying that the middle of the day worked better for them, though.
There were some, but for whatever reason, the first meeting
Was
was
at 7.
evening.
Okay.
Yes, evening.
So, Bob, if it's in the middle of a day, East Coast, you'd be willing?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be perfect. I mean, that's
nominate
8
Bob.
o'clock at night for, like, meeting time.
Second.
All right, so motion and a second to nominate Bob as our representative to the Net Zero Building Standards Working Group, pending
the
the
time
timing of the
yeah.
meetings aligning to his travel schedule.
Yeah.
perfect.
Sounds good to me.
Is that fair, Bob?
That's fair.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
What if Bob said nay?
Then I would have said nay. I respect that.
You have a
Okay.
question.
Oh, yeah, please.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Can I get the name of this committee here? Because the
It's,
EV charging stations working group had recommendations for building standards.
yep. It's
The
the,
Net Zero Building Standards Working Group.
yep.
You know Beth Perkins?
Yeah, yeah.
Talk to her.
Oh, okay.
It's the Net Zero Building Standards Working Group.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Actually, you-
Okay.
If you grab a agenda on the way out, you can see it's written on there. On the back.
Yeah, I have it written on it.
Yeah, so in section E, under general business,
That's zero, yeah, no name.
Motion to approve the minutes,
Oh, I meant Beth. That's.
8/16,
Okay, got it.
oh, sorry.
2022.
Thanks.
All right, we are on to home stretch here. Yes, the minutes from May 16th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 16th?
No moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion?
I had one on the last part, like around line 174, talks about the votes to recommend the articles, and we also voted on supporting Article 18, so if you want to just add above there, sorry, where is it? Yeah, like 168, 169, if you want to just copy that and paste in for that,
Article 18.
to recommend approval of Article 18.
Well, 18 was the one you had earlier in the evening.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
That was the actual
Check it out.
public.
Okay, alrighty,
Yeah, yeah.
thanks.
Now, as it turns out, just as an update, for 483 Groton Road, the petitioner is not going to present at town meeting. They're actually closing on the property a couple days after town meeting, so they won't be actually attending town meeting.
Okay,
Just letting you know.
okay.
So who's presenting?
At this point, no one.
Do you need something presented?
Do I need
No,
someone to
do we
present?
need
I
to-
do
Do we
not.
need to present?
But the question may come up, is there anyone wanting to present this article to town meeting? So the question is,
Since
does,
it's a zoning one, makes sense.
You would be
that-
the first target, I'm sure.
Sure. I'm happy to present something. Can I have a short statement?
Sure, we can put something together.
Great, thanks, 'cause I'm in New York this week. We can go back and forth in email if you want. If you can send me something in email, I can work on it on the train.
Sure.
Great.
Okay.
If somebody's gotta say something, I can say something, that's fine.
No, it's just whether you want to present it.
So if the applicant doesn't care, do we care, is I guess the question.
That is the fundamental question, I guess.
Right.
That's the question, because normally it would be part of some study or something that you folks, but if you
But, I
still
mean-
think it
But do
should.
they have a reason why they can't be there?
We're told.
All right, so,
Okay.
so, it's not a no, but,
There will be a handout at town meeting as well that gives
a
basically
breakdown.
synopsis. Yeah.
So if you and I can just exchange a couple of quick emails while I'm traveling to and from the city this week, in case, I think we can let that article go in front of town meeting without anybody saying anything, and if is there anybody here to present something, I can stand up and say, this is the action we took and the reason why.
We do have a handout prepared for town meeting,
Sure.
already printed, that includes the board's recommendations.
There you go. Should be a short email. You can send me an attachment. So there you go. All right. Any other discussion about the minutes?
No.
No. Motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike? Aye. Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. And that concludes our meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate? Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Have a good evening, everybody.
I'll be there Saturday.
Congratulations to the new appointments.